Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners all around the world, but also to welcome to the programme four exciting, talented players of this game, who once more are going to show off their verbal dexterity, their humorous ingenuity, as they try and speak on a subject that I give them. And they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those four people are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Maureen Lipman, and seated on my left, Pam Ayres and Dara or Briain. Please welcome all four of them. Lovely. Seated beside me is Julie Stevens, who's going to help me with the score, and she will also blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Hay Festival at Hay-on-Wye in the beautiful part of Wales, which is now absolutely drenched in rain and mud. And we have a wonderful, enthusiastic audience who brave the elements to come and cheer us on our way. As we start the show with Paul Merton. Paul, the first subject in front of me is every trick in the book. Will you speak on that subject, starting now?
Every trick in a book, I suppose, refers to the idea that there is a book somewhere for each profession, and if you learn each one of these tricks, you will be able to find your way round any job. Magicians are very keen on their magic books. Budding conjurers would sometimes practice these routines in their bedrooms. You can imagine a lonely boy manipulating coins in his hand and thinking to himself, if only I could make one of these things disappear.
Pam challenge.
I thought it was a slight hesitation.
It was a slight...
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was enough to actually say it was a real hesitation within the rules of Just a Minute.
He
He was
right.
going at quite a pace, you know.
Oh.
Listen,
Hang on, they've got a rope.
Just a minute, I want to get one thing. I want to get one thing. Who's running the show? No, I don't think it was a strong enough hesitation. Paul, another incorrect challenge. Keep the subject at 34 seconds, starting now.
If you buy a pop-up book, a 3D version of one of those things that we get in libraries, you will be amazed at the fantastic...
Maureen,
that
you
is
challenge.
more of a hesitation.
Yes, that was a hesitation.
And there was another
yes.
book, but
you keep
I
going
didn't
long
dare.
enough,
No.
trying to find a different word to say what you've just said is a great challenge. Maureen, you have a correct challenge. You have a point. You have 26 seconds. Every trick in the book starting now.
Every trick in the book means every guile, every ruse, every bit of bribery, every bit of seduction that you can use.
Pam, challenge.
I think there was repetition of every bit of.
Hundreds of repetitions.
In fact,
Yeah, every's on the card, so she can repeat that. But bit, you were quite right. She shouldn't have repeated
that's what
that.
I meant.
That's what you meant.
That's what I meant.
What
And
did I
that's me-
repeat?
Bit. Every
Oh,
bit.
bit.
There are
Yes.
2 bits, Maureen.
2 bits, and you've
Two
kind
bit
of
Maureen, you're
You've
right
got the
there,
bit, you've got the bit between your teeth, and unfortunately it didn't work on this occasion. Right, Pam, a correct challenge, a point to you. 19 seconds available. Every trick in the book starting now.
This is something that's said in a derogatory fashion about women. We all know about her. She knows every trick in the book, they say, in a disparaging fashion, meaning that the woman is perhaps not as...
Dara, challenge.
I might be wrong. It was a woman. No, it was
Yes,
a woman.
it is. No, it was women before.
women the first time.
Yes,
Yeah,
women,
I jumped
women
in now.
and woman, yes. And so it was an incorrect challenge, I'm afraid, Dara, but lovely to hear from you. And 4 seconds. Back with you, Pam. Another point, of course. Every trick in the book starting now.
Another nasty thing people say about females is...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of about.
Yes.
About women.
About women.
I'm going to have success plucked out of my hands.
You're quite right, because he's got
the
in
night is young.
with 1 second to go.
Oh, that's not fair.
I know, but it's just the rules of the game, unfortunately. Paul, you have a correct challenge, yes. Every trick in the book, and 1 second to go, starting now.
1 second to go, that's every trick in the book.
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gets an extra point. It was Paul Merton, and he's got a lead at the end of that first round. Maureen, would you take the second round? The subject here we have is flirting with disaster, Maureen. 60 seconds, starting now.
Flirting with disaster is not dissimilar from the category we had earlier, which was asking for trouble in some way. And again, it seems to be related to women. Flirting has always been something which has been associated with the female species.
Dara, challenge.
That's repetition of associated.
Yes, that's right. Well done, Dara.
And it's nice to hear from me, isn't that it? Is that what you're going to say?
It is nice.
You don't
not
think,
that nice,
you think
actually,
I
Dara.
drifted off or something like that?
No. It's nice to hear from you again. You came in very rapidly last time. You've got 49 seconds, Dara, on flirting with disaster, starting now.
It depends how you put this in order grammatically. If it's flirting, comma, with disaster, that is something I tell you some stories about. I've chatted up women, it's all gone hideously wrong later. I've done the flirting part perfectly, and then they turned out to be bunny boilers of the highest order. It starts all very well, charming glances, maybe a touch on the arm. Ultimately, we're all apes at heart when it comes to this stuff. You can brush your hair past your ear. I can't, obviously, not a point that comes through on radio particularly, but I do the gesture anyway. Then it just looks like I'm stroking my own ear for some sort of perverse forward sexual.
Maureen, challenge.
Did we have a double ear?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Ear.
Yeah. You had the ears. So Maureen has a correct challenge and a point for that. And 17 seconds on flirting with disaster, starting now.
Well, again, flirting is such a difficult art. It seems to have gone out of fashion. It used to be very good in Jane Austen's day, and people would lower their eyes. One thinks of Princess Diana, really, looking down and then looking up from under her eyelashes.
Pam, challenge.
Two looking.
Yeah, looking down and then
was
looking
very
up.
good.
Well, listen,
Yes.
Pam, you have the subject. You have 5 seconds still available.
She'll never make it.
Oh, that was so nasty.
Flirting with disaster, starting now.
Another expression for flirting with disaster would be giving him...
So Pam had this, that extra point for speaking as the whistle went. Oh, she's equal with Paul, and the other two are just behind them. Pam Ayres, will you take the next round? On a wing and a prayer. That's the subject. Will you talk on it? 60 seconds, starting now.
When I hear the expression a wing and a prayer, I envisage a young pilot in his shattered craft, limping home, his fuselage in tatters, coming in over the wash and calling out on his crackling radio, "I can't hold her, skipper, me rudder's shot."
Maureen, you challenged.
I'm not entirely sure about this, but do we say skipper in the Air Force?
Oh, yes.
Well, you might say anything. I mean, he might, under the stress of the moment,
No, that's
could
right,
be
he was
anything.
stressed.
He was stressed.
What, and he
Maybe
thought he was in a
wasn't
boat?
in charge of a sardine.
No, it's an Air Force expression.
Yeah, no, he could quite well say to his chief pilot there, what would you say?
Skipper.
I know you said skipper,
I
but can
can't
you
hold
it?
her, skipper,
I
me
can't hold
rudder
a skipper.
shot.
Yes, that's
No,
right.
only if
mean-
there was a cartload of sardines in the back of the plane. I think.
No, you're thinking of kippers.
And he was coming over the wash, you know,
Yeah.
down to Great Yarmouth, where you get the best kippers in the country. That's a plug if you want to send me a box.
What, do you think they're going to post them to you?
Well, they do.
They do.
They
They do.
They cure them there on the beach at Yarmouth. And right, who's? No, it was an incorrect challenge to you, Pam.
Well, thank
so you
you.
have another point. 39 seconds on a wing and a prayer, starting now.
Clad in his leather bomber jacket with cream shearling collar, goggles and close-fitting helmet, he descends through the cloud canopy and sees to his inestimable relief the flickering, blinking lights of the runway stretched out across the fens, guiding him home. Breathless with emotion, he calls down the intercom, "We're coming home, by God, on a wing and a prayer." I don't know what else.
And you almost got him home to the end of the round. But they loved it, Pam. But Paul, you challenge
I'm
first.
exhausted.
Yes, lost radio contact.
Yeah, hesitation, in other words. 11 seconds are still available, Paul. Tell us something about On a Wing and a Prayer, starting now.
I remember when I first put on a pair of football boots. I was 7 years old, and the teacher said to me, "I want you to play on the wing." This was for
Pam challenged.
This is nothing like as exciting as my story.
No. Well, you haven't heard the punchline.
Oh, that's just true.
Now, Pam, you're quite right about that. It isn't as exciting. but as we enjoyed your interruption, we'll give you a bonus point for that.
Thank you very much.
But, Paul, you weren't interrupted, so you get a point, and you still have, on a wing and a prayer, 4 seconds starting now.
I was about to take this penalty when this plane came out of nowhere straight towards...
Right. So... on this occasion, Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, and he gained that extra point for doing so. He's 1 point ahead of Pam Ayres and 2 or 3 points ahead of Maureen Lipman and Dara Briain. The next subject is a dirty laugh. And we'd like you to take the subject, Dara, and you start now.
It seems like such a welcoming concept to have a kind of a bawdy giggle or a car-skating snort whenever... Oh, yeah, I hate this show so much. I hate this damn game so much. It's like he's designed in my own personal hell, this guy.
Don't say that.
Dara, I have to ask you, if you bang the table like that, I'm afraid the engineers will go bazonkers and...
Just tell them I was trying to communicate to the nation just how irritating I find...
Tell him it's an unexpected séance.
Yeah. So, Maureen, you challenge first.
I was questioning the word carcasing.
Well, you can guess...
It wasn't the word I had intended to start with. And midway through, I thought, if I stop now, they'll get me for hesitation. Better to create an entirely new language.
So you got him for deviation from the English language as we understand it, as opposed to hesitation. And Maureen, you have the subject and 53 seconds for a dirty laugh starting now.
A dirty laugh.
Paul challenged.
Bit of a hesitation.
There was definite hesitation.
You could have made a ham sandwich in that hesitation.
Not for me, you couldn't.
No, not for you. Cottage cheese.
Was just breathe in.
I know, you only breathe.
Like that, and you rang the bell, I call that.
Maureen, I'll tell you what I'm going to do there, because you haven't played the game quite as much as the rest. So
I
I'm
have
going
to breathe, Nicholas.
And, yes. But it's best to take a breath, as I'm saying. You start now, and then you can go straight away.
Okay, try me, go on,
we'll
try me.
We give, to be fair, within the...
Try me, go on.
Within the rules of justice... Oh, she's acting her head off now, if you can only see it. The audience love it, so we're letting encourage her.
So I'm waiting to breathe when you say it, go on.
No, I'm going to say, first of all, within the rules of just a minute, Paul was correct, so we give him a point for his correct challenge. But we're being generous to you and saying you were interrupted. So you keep the subject, and you don't get a point, unfortunately.
Forgotten what the bloody subject is now.
And which is a dirty laugh, and you have 52 seconds, and your time starts now.
Some people have a dirty laugh. I don't. I have a snigger or a giggle or a smirk, and you can't really...
Paul challenge.
Quite a lot of oars.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Oh. Or a giggle or a smirk.
Or a giggle or a smirk.
I'm sorry if you're disappointed in the way this game is played.
Well,
Perhaps you'd be happy with quote-unquote. Is it Shakespeare? It's always bloody Shakespeare, isn't it?
So, Maureen Lipman has still got the subject, and there are 48 seconds. A dirty laugh starting now.
The dirtiest laugh I've heard is Graham Norton's. It's a snigger combined with some sort of really mean kind of sound. I like Graham Norton, don't get me wrong, but that is a dirty laugh. Oh, I've said
Paul
it
challenge,
twice,
yes.
Yeah.
I daren't say this, really, but... I know the subtext of the subject is Graham Norton, but Graham Norton.
Graham, yes, the audience are with you this time, Paul,
yes.
Don't worry. You have Graham Norton, 39 seconds, a dirty laugh starting now.
A dirty laugh is generally attributed to Sid James in the Carry On films. I think Nicholas probably worked with him once or twice, and it was an extraordinary sound. You used to hear it coming across the loudspeakers in your local cinema. I can't really impersonate it, but I can, but it would be repetition because it was a kind of repetitious sort of laugh. Also, if you think of a dirty laugh, one tends to think of something like a blue postcard or something like a seaside thing.
Two lights came on together, so what do I do?
You give it to me. You give it to me.
Give it a
Even if neither were my
I don't
light.
want the subject.
I think we would agree with you. That light did come on a fraction earlier. Right, Dara, it was your challenge.
And it was repetition for something.
That's right. Yes. And indeed. No, of the word something, not...
No, of the word something, yes.
That's right, yes.
Sorry. Repetition of quotation mark something, close quotation mark.
Oh, we are playing quote unquote. Is it Dorothy Parker? It's always Dorothy Parker on quote unquote.
Because I know anybody could challenge a repetition of something, yes. Because he did, but he didn't repeat. He did repeat the word something.
Yeah.
Right, Dara. I'm being pedantic, but I want to be accurate within the rules of just a minute,
Yeah.
in case people write in, and they do write in.
Yeah.
Anyway, 16 seconds are still available.
They don't write in, it's me, I write all the letters.
A dirty laugh is back with you, Dara. 16 seconds starting now.
There are many fields of life in which a dirty laugh is quite the handicap. Working for the Samaritans, for example.
Maureen, challenge.
For the Samaritans?
No,
Yeah.
he was going. No.
Wait a
Maureen.
minute, it was only a moment ago I was being booed for awe, and Maureen was your favourite, and now you've just turned like that. This is Rent-a-Mob.
You do find in just a minute the audiences are extraordinarily fickle. And they're turning out to be one of the most fickle we've had. 10 seconds still available, Dara. A dirty laugh starting now.
The other great problem, of course, is that when you have a dirty laugh, when people hear it, they have a tendency to track backwards and wonder what was the double entendre they've just missed. So perfectly innocent comments like, ooh, hey.
So Dara Briain was speaking then as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. He has leapt forward. He's still in third place, but he's moved. And Paul's in the lead, then Pam Ayres, then Dara, and then Maureen in that order. And Paul, we're back with you. Would you take the next subject, which is poetic license? Well, we're at a literary festival, and it's quite apt, I suppose, but talk about the subject in this game, starting now.
Poetic licence. I've never been able to write poetry. I admire Pam. She's been very good at it for many years. I always have that thing in the back of my head where I try for some sublime moment where you put the right word next to another and suddenly bring out an inner beauty which you thought neither words were capable of that, but then they are, and then you just think you've written a limerick which starts off. There was an old man from Bombay who called a bust of china one day. It said on the floor, don't spit on the floor, so he climbed up and spat on the ceiling.
Maureen,
Did I get the muse?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Maureen, you challenged.
There were two floors.
There were two.
There
They
were
had
two
to-
floors
had
in
to-
a perfect Persian carpet.
For the sake of the limerick, there had to be, and he started, so he was going to finish. Maureen, a point to you, and 34 seconds to take up poetic licence, starting now.
The poetic licence that allows me to say another limerick after Paul's already said one, which is, there was a young man from Dundee who sat down with a bump on a wasp. When asked if it hurt, he said, no, not a bit, you can do it again if you like. That's the kind of words...
Dara is challenged you. Dara.
I was just... Yes, go on then.
I'm just saying because it was a hesitation in order to enjoy the laughter she'd
know what.
created. So I admire her for doing it, but nonetheless...
Too long on stage, Dara. I'm afraid.
You were working the room beautifully at that point.
Yes, unfortunately, you cannot ride your laughs, as we say professionally, in this game, because otherwise it's hesitation. Dara, you got in there first. 19 seconds available. Poetic licence starting now.
There are many writers whose poetic licence should have been revoked at birth. I had to study some poets in Ireland who you never had the pleasure of in your educational system, whose entire opus was about TB. Nothing appeals to a crowd of 15-year-olds than a rasping old man discussing his pulmonary and breath-based illnesses.
So Dara Briain was again speaking as the whistle went, has moved forward. He's now in second place, just behind Paul Merton, and then Pam Ayres and Maureen Lipman in that order. And Pam, will you take the next round? A roll in the hay. Oh, yes. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
My favourite roll in the hay would be baked with granary flour, split, buttered, and absolutely crammed with thinly sliced tomato, crispy chicory, creamy avocado, a grey unk of Somerset brie just going runny in the middle, a modicum of Gloucester Old Spot home-smoked ham, sliced extremely frugally.
Maureen,
2 objections. 1, I'm feeling sick. And 2, there has been no mention of the second part of the category, as in hay.
I was just getting to it.
Well, you might say that, Pam.
I was getting to it.
Well, I had the impression that her role in the hay, which is a joyous thing to do, was having all this wonderful food, which I agree was a bit vomit-making, but she was...
I think we should let her continue so we can hear her describe 700 types of hay.
I think, Pam, once again, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you have 36 seconds still available, a roll in the hay starting now.
I would fasten up my roll with a rubber band, lean back and relax in the hay with a glass of Mackerson and a photograph of Brad Pitt. Other sandwiches or rolls I would enjoy are tuna with mayonnaise, turkey and cranberry sauce, smoked salmon with a squeeze of lemon, or just...
Paul, challenge.
Did we not have smoked before?
Yes, smoked ham you had before.
Did I?
Paul, 16 seconds are still available. A roll in the hay starting now.
When I look out of the windows now and I think to myself, as soon as this recording's over, I'm going to go out there and have a good roll in some hay. It's fantastic hay rolling weather. Just look. It's fantastic again. It's too fantastic.
Dara, you challenge first.
On fantastic. Repetition of fantastic.
Yes, indeed. 4 seconds for you. Tell us a roll in the hay starting now.
Hay gets everywhere. I'm not recommending this as any...
Paul, challenge.
Well, it doesn't get on the moon. It's not everywhere, is it?
No, but he was speaking metaphorically, and I think we know what
he was
meant.
lying. Hey, you're saying there's hay on the moon, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm sure there isn't. We know there isn't hay on the moon because Aldrich has been up there and he came back and told us there's
and
no
his
hay
first thing he said was, no hay, there's no hay up there. Waste of time going, there's no hay.
One step for mankind, one step for man, but a great step for mankind, and there's no hay.
They took a horse up there and everything, no hay.
So the benefit of the doubt to you, Dara, and you have 2 seconds, a roll in the hay starting now.
Some of my happiest memories are summery...
And I'm sorry I misquoted this great man. What was it? He said, one small step for man, a huge leap for mankind. Isn't that right?
No. Giant leap.
Giant leap. I'm glad you came. We're at a literary festival and I knew you'd help me. Thank you so much. And I'll give you this situation now because we're moving into the final round. Paul Merton's still in the lead with 16 points. He's just 4 ahead of Dara Briain. And then Pam Ayres. You've got 13 points, darling. You're 1 ahead of Dara, and you're 4 or 5 ahead of Maureen Lipman in that order. And Paul, we're back with you to start, and the subject is famous last words. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
There would be an awful lot of pressure on an individual who thought to themselves, I would like to get into one of these encyclopedias or dictionaries of famous last words. They're on their deathbed, they're thinking to themselves, I'm not feeling too good. Maybe now's the time to say this sentence that I've been saving up my entire life. You say it, everybody says this is remarkable.
Maureen challenged.
Say.
Oh, yes.
All the says there, yes. Maureen, you have the subject, and there are 43 seconds available. Famous last words starting now.
Well, of course, it was Dorothy Parker whose famous last words were, excuse my dust. And then there were the famous ones, then there were the ones that was like...
Then there was another, yes.
Famous, I can say famous twice.
Yeah,
Yes, but you said...
And then
Well, let me hear what the challenge is first.
Well, it's just sort of collapsed, didn't it? No,
No, but because I thought
It
I
wasn't
said,
repetition,
I
no.
thought I'd said famous twice, but I haven't, because I can.
you can, but you did... And that was
I
the
thought I'd
deviation.
throw in a little Swahili there.
It was very good.
Paul, you have a correct challenge, yes. 36 seconds starting now.
Oh, what a wonderful world it has been. As I...
Pam challenged. You're in hysterics. What's the matter?
Extreme pretentiousness, I was...
Famous last words.
It was the gesticulation that I thought was extremely pretentious.
I know, but when on the radio, it doesn't really matter how
All right, then.
much you gesticulate. Famous
I was
last
just being
words.
spiteful, really.
You were being keen, which we love. Right, That's 32 seconds, Paul. Still famous last words with you, starting now.
I have known many people all my life, and to find myself on my deathbed now, after 70 years and 10. Martha, is that you? I see you in the light. Alice, is Alice here? Who's looking after the shop? These are the sorts of things that you want to say to your loved ones when the time comes to the fading of the light. I'm sure I speak for everybody on the panel when I say to Nicholas, well, I don't know if you've got a return ticket or not, but I wish you the best of luck if you can get back to London in the current state you are. And what a great...
Pam was challenged.
I challenged for deviation,
Why?
actually, because he was going on about going back to London in the state you're in, and I didn't think it had anything to do with famous last words, because he was talking about the railways.
All right.
If I die, I win the point, right?
Listen, if those are your famous last words and you had all that strength to get those out,
Yeah.
you're going to live for another 10 years
Yeah.
like that. 1 second, famous last words, starting now.
I once invented a feeble joke.
My favourite last words were those of Oscar Wilde, who said, either that wallpaper goes or I do.
Would you like to hear my feeble joke?
Yes.
Okay, the feeble joke is famous last words of the fatted calf. I see the prodigal sons come home.
Give her another bonus point for that, yes. Right, let me give you the final score, because Pam Ayres was speaking as a whistle when gained that point and another bonus point. Finished up in a very strong second place by our leader. She's just ahead of Dara, Briain and Maureen Lipman in that order, but just 2 points ahead of Pam was Paul Merton. So we say this week, Paul, you are our winner. Right, thank you. Thank you. It only remains me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Maureen Lipman, Pam Ayres and Dara O'Brien. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score. She's blown a whistle with great elegance. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this lovely game, and we're also grateful to our producer, Talusha Galani. And we are grateful to this audience here at the Guardian Hay Festival in Hay-on-Wye, who've cheered us on our way in spite of the wet and the cold and this damp tent as it swayed to the sound of the breezes outside. From me, Nicholas Parsons, and everybody here, goodbye, listeners. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away once more, it is my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and, of course, throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented players of this game who have come together purely to show their talent, pit their wits, display their verbal dexterity, their humorous invention, as they try and speak on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those 4 bright, intelligent people are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and seated on my left, Graham Norton and Chris Addison. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me is Charlotte Davies, who's going to help me with the score and blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Mermaid Theatre, that lovely little gem of a theatre on the banks of the Thames. And we have an audience who've come here just to enjoy themselves, and we're going to enjoy ourselves. As we begin the show, Graham Norton, will you take the first subject? The subject is, oh, how apt for the Mermaid Theatre, how to be a thespian. 60 seconds, starting now.
How to be a thespian is very simple. Throw away your lipstick and your high heel shoes, invest in some sensible slacks and a stout sweater. Begin listening to Katie Lang albums, take up an interest in golf and ladies' tennis.
Chris Addison, you've challenged. Why?
My challenge was deviation.
From what?
The subject.
Of
He
what?
was talking about lesbians, not thespians.
I do feel a silly. I must have misheard our chairman. May I start again?
No, because I don't think my diction is so bad that you could have mistaken a TH for an L. We enjoyed what you said, actually. And if you were going off on the subject you thought it was, I'm glad that Chris actually challenged and got you off it. So I have to say to you, Chris, you have a correct challenge. And you have 49 seconds. You take over the subject, got a point for a correct challenge, of course. How to be a thespian, 60 seconds, starting now.
Of course, there's nothing wrong with girls liking girls. It's perfectly...
Chris, you've challenged.
I didn't challenge.
Well, your light came... Oh, yes?
Yeah, I pressed.
No, but Chris's light came on first.
Well...
Repetition.
If I have to have a challenge, it would be deviation from the subject. I deviated from the subject.
Right.
I didn't challenge because I was talking. In the spirit of fairness, I feel that Clement or Paul, one of my senior colleagues, challenged, and due to some unlucky happenstance...
I did have a challenge.
I know, and so did Clement have a challenge. You all had a challenge. But the trouble is, Chris Addison's light came on. I go by whatever light comes on here. Chris, you challenge.
Nicholas, when does your light come on?
Oh, you are wicked to clap that, aren't you? But I'll show you how fair I am. Give Paul a bonus point for his particular remark. And the benefit of the doubt to Chris Addison. 47 seconds available. How to be a thespian starting now.
When I was a little child, I very much wanted to be
a Graham challenge.
All children are little. That's the point of them,
Yeah, but some of them... No, not some of them. 15-year-olds are quite big. I was a little...
No, I think that's...
I don't think he was indicating that he was unique.
No. So, incorrect challenge.
Okay.
And you have another point, Chris, and 44 seconds. How to be a thespian starting now.
I wanted very...
Paul challenge.
Well, there was a hesitation. You could have made a ham sandwich there, couldn't you? I mean, you could have bought the bread, you could have sliced it, you could have chosen the ham, you could have chosen butter, margarine, you could have cut the crust off, you could have handed it round. Hesitation. No hesitation.
I'm going to give you hesitation, but you don't need to rub it in like that.
To be fair, Nicholas, it was me who pressed the button.
But Paul's light came on. It was Paul Merton. Hesitation's correct, Paul. 43 seconds. How to be a thespian starting now.
I auditioned for RADA when I was 19 years old, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. I wasn't particularly fulfilling an ambition to appear in that school for 2 or 3 years. I just wanted to get up on the stage and be judged professionally. I wasn't particularly good.
Graham challenged.
A repetition of particularly.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Well, listen, Graham.
Was it really?
Yeah.
And I wasn't as well. Right, 28 seconds. Graham, the subject is back with you. Listen, Graham. How to be a thespian.
I wouldn't make the same mistake twice.
Well, it's a thespian, and you start now.
Large bunches of keys would be meaning that you're in stage management. To be a thespian, however, you would probably wear nice makeup and skip across the stage. Learn lines, because you can't say what you want if you're a thespian. You have to play a role. It's another word meaning actor or actress. Isn't that right, everybody? Now, I think the best...
Paul challenge.
Well, a bit slowing down, a bit of hesitation now, though.
Yes, I think when you addressed the audience, you didn't get any reaction and you paused.
It was a dramatic pause. It was a dramatic pause.
It's a dramatic thespian's pause, but you can't do it in just a minute.
Fair enough.
So, Paul, hesitation. 5 seconds. How to be a thespian starting now.
I stood on that platform. I couldn't remember if I said stage before.
I know, I could see what was going on, and your mind is all revealed across the face, listeners. That's
I was
why.
about to say to be or not to be as well.
So, Chris, you challenge first, and you've got in with 3 seconds to go on how to be a thespian starting now.
When Paul stood on that stage...
Clement challenged.
I haven't said anything.
He has not said anything for a while.
At all.
Right. Well,
Hello.
Clement...
Good
Hello.
evening.
give Clement a bonus point for his
like the
hello,
subject.
good evening, because we'll...
I'd like the subject.
No. No, you can't. You can have a bonus point.
I'll be quite brief.
Yeah, be quite...
Give him 2 bonus points then, all right? But no, I've got to be fair with the rules of just a minute. Chris, you were interrupted, so you get a point for that. You keep the subject. 2 seconds ago, how to be a thespian, starting now.
At the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, as it stands...
So at the end of that round, Chris Addison was speaking as a whistle wind, gained that extra point, and others in the round. He's taken a strong lead. And Chris, we're going to ask you to take the next round. The subject is the tip of the iceberg. That's the subject. 60 seconds, starting now.
The tip of the iceberg is a phrase which alludes to the fact that icebergs have only a small amount above the waterline. Most of it is below that level, and this is true of most lettuces. So why the iceberg should be singled out amongst them is beyond me. It is also, coincidentally, the case with its namesake, the iceberg, a large amount of ice floating around in the Arctic, on which are to be found polar bears and Arctic foxes.
Silly boy.
Do you really get polar bears and Arctic foxes on icebergs?
Have you not seen the front of a fox's glacier mint?
Yeah.
I think
But that's not
the
really
foxes around the back.
That's not an iceberg, though, is it?
I think you established it was in the Arctic where you'd get the polar bears, and icebergs were around there. I don't think he was definitely saying polar bears only appear on icebergs. Were you, Chris?
No, heaven forfend.
So when he said on his icebergs you get polar bears and Arctic foxes, he meant...
Well, you
Slugs.
could. It is possible. Because it could have been a piece of ice that is separated from the polar cap.
Oh.
Yes.
OK.
All right. The benefit of the doubt to Chris Addison.
Have you been watching Planet Earth again, have you, Nicholas?
That's right. So the tip of the iceberg is with you still, Chris. 35 seconds, starting now.
The polar bears and...
Yeah, this is what happens in this game. You lose it, you come straight back with the words you shouldn't use. Paul, yes, correct challenge. Polar bears, right. 34 seconds. The tip of the iceberg with you, Paul, starting now.
In 1912, the Titanic left Southampton, which was a bit of a funny thing because it sunk in 1911. Meanwhile...
Challenged.
Repetition of 19.
Repetition of 19, yes. So you got the tip of the iceberg, Clement, and you have 28 seconds starting now.
An iceberg is probably the most boring, tasteless, unamusing cabbage lettuce there has ever been. No taste is as...
Chris, challenge.
I rescind the challenge.
Why?
Because I was going to challenge on taste.
Well, you'd be
I
correct,
just didn't like
wouldn't
what he
you?
was saying.
No, it was tasteless and taste.
Yeah, it's tasteless and taste.
Right, well, listen, Chris. Clement gets a point because he was interrupted.
Yes,
And
and my apologies.
he's 18 seconds, the tip of the iceberg with you, Clement, starting now.
And the tip of an iceberg is quite particularly uninteresting. Let me explain about oil and vinegar, which fuses with salt and pepper, lemon...
A Graham challenge.
Let's not.
Oh, we did enjoy the interruption.
No, but it's nothing. It's deviation from the subject as well. It's not about the tip of the iceberg.
No, he's talking about iceberg lettuces, you
He's
say.
talking about salad dressing.
I know, but would you put that on an iceberg lettuce?
Yeah.
Not just the tip.
But including the tip.
Well, you would. It would go all over it, so it would include the tip. So,
All right.
All right. A bonus point, though, because we enjoyed the interruption.
Yeah, thanks.
And,
I didn't.
Clement, you have a point.
I didn't enjoy the interruption.
I think you should give...
I sort of started to enjoy it, then I went off it a bit. I've heard it before.
Clement has a point for being interrupted. 8 seconds, the tip of the iceberg starting now.
The tip of the iceberg is actually what you can see above the water, on the assumption that most of the iceberg is beneath the...
Well, no, wait a minute. Paul challenged before the
right
whistle went.
towards the end, there was a hesitation there.
I think it was a full stop.
Yeah.
Paul, you've got in with half a second to go on the tip of the iceberg starting now.
The tip of the iceberg is something that I never trusted.
At the end of that round, Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now equal with Chris Addison, the lead, ahead of Clement, Freud and Graham Norton in that order. And Clement, it's your turn to begin. So will you take the subject of public relations? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
It's quite interesting to be given the subject of public relations, because public relations is a profession which my youngest son pursues, and private relations are because he gave birth to my 16th grandchild.
Paul Jones.
Well, you're all right. Yeah.
It just strikes me as ideally placed to spread the news that he's given birth to...
That would be a first, wouldn't it?
Deviation, yes.
Deviation, yes.
He hasn't given birth.
Well, his wife has given birth, we hope.
Oh, really? That's a coincidence, the two of them. I suppose that's probably planned, was it?
Paul, a correct challenge, because it was deviation. He didn't. His wife did. 45 seconds available. Public relations starting now.
Public relations is explaining to people why things have gone wrong in a huge way that makes them think that perhaps they're never going to get their money back. Look at the people on Titanic and say, look, I'm sorry about that, but here's his luggage, a bit wet, but what can you do? It was a shame those people left Southampton.
Clement, challenge.
Repetition of people.
Yes, there were too many people, Paul.
Were there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Clement, you've got the subject back. 31 seconds. Public relations starting now.
The son of my...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of son, my
Yes,
youngest son.
I have two sons.
Yeah.
So he did repeat son. 29 seconds. Back with you, Paul. Public relations starting now.
There was an episode of Some Mothers...
Graham, challenge.
What word was that? I'm going with hesitation or deviation from the English.
I didn't...
You'll find one
it's very hard to make that challenge when you can't say the word English.
I didn't actually catch what the word was either.
I did.
What was it?
Episode.
It could have been.
Absolutely.
It could have been. But
We on this side...
I tell you what I'm going to do, Paul. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt
To me.
No. To Graham, because we haven't heard from him for time. 27 seconds with you, Graham. Public relations starting now.
Mark something or other is a presenter of many ITV2 shows. His mother is Judith Chalmers. Does that make her a public relation? I'm interested because she is a public figure and related to that man whose name I can't remember. I met them once on holiday. It was bizarre. I was at the airport. I was waiting.
Paul, challenge.
Meeting Judith Chalmers on holiday isn't bizarre.
You should see Judith with a tan.
The chances of her not being there are extremely remote.
Exactly. Because she's been to nearly every country in the world.
Yeah.
But, Paul, we give you the benefit of the doubt because we don't think, in the strict sense of the word, it was bizarre for him to meet Judith Chalmers when she's on holiday. So you have seconds. I'll put that again. You have 7. I speak faster than my words will come out.
How can you do that? Is Charlotte working you with her foot? Is she?
Charlotte, please don't pull the string so tight next time.
And make sure which string you pull and all.
But there are 7 seconds still available, Paul, because you have a correct challenge. Public relations starting now.
One day I decided I was going to meet my great uncle in the middle of Trafalgar Square. I phoned him up and I said, be there at midnight.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point, he's taken a strong lead ahead of Chris Addison, Clement Freud and Graham Norton in that order. Paul, will you take the next round? When you weren't looking, that's the subject in front of me. Can you talk on that subject? 60 seconds, starting now.
When you weren't looking, we played a practical joke on you, Nicholas. When you were talking to the audience before the recording tonight, myself, Clement Freud, Chris Addison and Graham Norton stripped naked and danced the dance of 1,000 dreams. And the audience laughed and you thought it was because of your jokes, and we've been doing that for 17 years. It's a shame. You haven't had a laugh in public, Nicholas, since 1968, and that's only when you fell off the stage when you're commemorating the death of the old Queen. I'm referring to Victoria, of course, not the present incumbent on the throne. When I take my mind back to all those Royal Variety performances when our astute chairman used to walk onto the stage and say, ladies and gentlemen, Chopin.
Chris Addison, new challenge.
Repetition of stage.
Unfortunately it was, yes. I was going to let him go on that because it was so bizarre.
But you're not playing the game,
I don't
are
know
you?
why the audience were laughing at that outrageous depiction, because this audience were there listening to me before you came on.
Yeah.
While you said you were stripping naked backstage.
Yeah, we were.
Right. I don't believe you, because no one would laugh at that.
We got a round of applause.
Not having seen you. Right. So you did go for 40 seconds, which is pretty good. And but you can't get any points for it, can you? Because that's not the way Just a Minute goes. Chris, you get a point for a correct challenge, and you have 20 seconds on When You Weren't Looking, starting now.
When you weren't looking is the time when everything changes. When you weren't looking, it became acceptable to listen to tunes incredibly loud on your mobile phone in public. When you weren't looking, Natasha Kaplinsky became taken seriously. When you weren't looking, they put the prices up on railway fares. And it is at exactly this time, when you are not looking...
Paul Chalmers.
I mean, there is a limit to how many times you can say the subject on the card.
I think there should be a limit, yes.
But there isn't.
No.
Do you think we've reached that point?
Well, I don't know, because you see, Chris has only just started playing the game, hasn't he? I usually give it against people who repeat it ad nauseam.
OK.
And you were wrong.
I was using it as a rhetorical device.
I know, and you used it very well. So we give you a bonus point for your inventiveness. Paul had a point because he was correct challenge, and there's 1 second left.
Oh.
And When You Weren't Looking is with you, Paul, starting now.
The Crystal Palace burned down!
So Paul got more points in that round, has taken a stronger lead, ahead of Chris Addison, who's in second place, then Clement, Freud and Graham Norton. And Graham, we'd like you to take the next round. Here's a lovely subject. Happily Ever After. Will you talk on Happily Ever After? 60 seconds, starting now.
Happily ever after is a phrase usually associated with fairy tales. They all lived happily ever after. Now, even as a child, I thought not everyone did. The seven dwarfs got to be thrilled to see your one leaving the house. Who's going to cook the dinner now while we're in the mine, working all day and whistling? The ugly sisters didn't jump for joy when Cinderella, the slave, married the prince, did they? No, I say, good people of the Mermaid Theatre, Puddle Dock, near the Thames in London. Very historic. Now, happily ever after is a repetitious phrase which occurs at the end of those stories which I mentioned earlier, involving witches and wizards, goblins, giants, ogres, beanstalks. Poisoned apples prove surprisingly popular in their pages as well, I've noticed. Happily ever after. If only that could be.
You've interrupted.
Yeah, how many times is he allowed to repeat the subject?
No, you're quite right, because you lost it on repeating that phrase, and you couldn't resist challenging him because he kept repeating the phrase. All right, I give you the benefit of the doubt. You get a point for a correct challenge. But that man sitting beside you, Graham Norton, gets a point because you went for 56 seconds.
56?
And you have 4 seconds, Chris, on Happily Ever After, starting now.
Happily ever after.
Paul Chalmers.
Hesitation.
No.
But he starts with a...
Yeah.
That's
I know
just
he
an
did.
unfortunate thing with my teeth.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It's
No,
really
you
good for
didn't.
this game then, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could have made a tongue sandwich.
Have you just woken up?
So, Chris, you've got an incorrect challenge. And you keep the subject, because you'll be going for only a second. You have 3 more seconds to go. Happily Ever After, starting now.
The ogre's fair.
Paul Chalmers.
He did it again!
You wicked so-and-so, he didn't. No, you didn't.
Yes, he
Can
did.
you count me in?
Yes, he did.
He got words out, and he was only going for half a second.
Yes, and that half a second consisted of...
It's just a vocal idiosyncrasy of his. It isn't a hesitation.
Shall we ignore it as a matter of policy?
No.
Just why don't you just count
See if
me
he
in?
does it a third time. Because you've got 3...
OK, let's see if he does it the third time.
You've got 3.5 seconds to go. Happily Ever After, starting now.
The ogre's goblin fairy.
Deviation. He didn't go... It's either a speech problem or it isn't, you know.
A bonus point to Paul Merton for his remark there. But his light came on, Paul.
Did it?
Oh, right, you can have a bonus point as well, because we love giving them to you. Right, a bonus point for Clement.
Can I have one?
Yes, you can have one as well, yes.
So
Bonus point
if
for
I'm right,
Clement.
that's 3 incorrect challenges. So
That's right. No, but you got a point because you were incorrectly challenged.
Super.
So, and you have now 2 seconds on Will we ever finish this round? I say to myself. Happily Ever After, starting now.
in these fairy tales.
Clement, yes.
Repetition of not hesitating.
Incorrect
Short
challenge.
fire
You have
challenge.
another point, Chris, and you have Happily Ever After, and 1.5 seconds starting now.
Beanstalks in particular are not particularly known for...
So Chris Addison, with 1 for speaking as a whistle, went other points in the round with the help of the chairman and the indulgence of the other players, has leapt forward. He's only 1 point behind our leader, Paul Merton, ahead of Clement, Freud and Graham Norton in that order, as we move into the final round. And Chris, it's also your turn to begin.
Let me get my voice ready.
And the subject now is forbidden fruit. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
When I was a child, next door to us lived a man called Mr. Wilson, who had a large patch of brambles at the end of his garden. And come the autumn, these plants would be...
Paul challenged.
Hesitation.
That was
speech
a
impediment,
hesitation,
speech
yes.
impediment.
Right. Paul, correct challenge. 51 seconds available. Forbidden fruit, starting now.
In the biblical story, of course, we are told about Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden.
Graham challenged.
I just want to know if he's going to do the whole minute like this.
I'm impersonating you. You've spent a lifetime doing it. I do it in 15 seconds.
I was going to say, because I'm really enjoying it.
So what is your challenge with the rules of just a minute?
No, none, really.
None. Well, we'll give you a bonus point because we enjoy the interruption.
Loving this.
And Paul, you have a point, of course. You were interrupted. 46 seconds. Forbidden fruit, starting now.
In the 1960s and 70s, we were forbidden from eating South African fruit because of the terrible apartheid situation in that wonderful country. Graham, I believe, has property in Cape Town. That's why he's such a lovely colour at the moment. Either that or his shirt is specially white to show off the beautiful tan which may have come from the Tottenham Court Road, or perhaps...
Graham challenged.
Now, unless I'm the forbidden fruit, I believe he's deviating.
Well, could be.
Graham, I would hardly describe you as fruity.
I'm certainly not forbidden.
But what is your challenge when the rules of just a minute?
A deviation from the subject.
No.
He's talking about my shirt.
Oh, yes, the benefit of the doubt to Graham. And,
That really was deviation from the subject.
yes, it was.
Thank you.
Forbidden fruit is with you, Graham. 26 seconds, starting now.
The forbidden fruit was originally the apple. How dull. Why would you need to forbid anyone from eating that? Stand back from the mango, I say.
Greg Clement challenged.
There were no bananas at that time.
Deuteronomy 4, chapter 5. Yes, we have no bananas.
Deuteronomy is the 4th book of the Bible, and Genesis...
Do you think I know anything about the Bible?
And this was in the first book of the Bible where the forbidden fruit came. So, incorrect challenge. You've still got the subject, Graham. Forbidden fruit, and there are 19 seconds starting now.
Perhaps the snake liked the apple. Oh, I've said apple before, haven't I?
Paul challenge.
Apple 3 times, pointing out that he'd said it before, then... So repetition, yeah.
Yes, repetition. 16 seconds. Paul, with you. Forbidden fruit, starting now.
I remember my grandfather looked me in the eye and said, there is a pomegranate that I have upstairs in my bedroom underneath the bed, which your granny doesn't know I possess. And with that, he took me towards his destination, reached underneath the springs...
Wait a minute. Clement challenge just before.
He said underneath before.
That's right, underneath the bed, and now
Oh, yes,
under the springs.
yes.
So they were applauding my sharp ears, I hope. And Clement, you did challenge. And Paul got in on you just a while ago with only half a second to go, and you have returned the compliment. Correct challenge, half a second. Forbidden fruit, starting now.
Underneath.
Let me give you the final score. So they all got lots of points, so they all achieved greatness in this particular edition of Just a Minute. Graham Norton coming back with glory and panache, finished just in 4th place with a lot of points. Clement Freud, with his usual style and panache, finished up in 3rd place with quite a lot of points. Chris Addison, who's only played the game very briefly, he finished with a lot of points. We didn't quite get as many points as Paul Merton. So, Paul, you were in the lead, and we say you are our winner this week. Thank you. It only remains for me to say thank you to our 4 fine players of the game. That is Paul Merton, Graham Norton, Chris Addison and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle with such elegance. We're grateful to our producer, Talusha Gilani. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're also indebted to this lovely audience here at the Mermaid Theatre in Puddle Dock in London. Thank you, audience, from you, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and from our panel. To our listeners, goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away once more, it's my pleasure to welcome not only our listeners, but also to welcome to the show 4 talented, exuberant, and highly comic fellows who are going to play this particular game. And they are seated on my right, that lovely comedian Paul Merton, beside him another exceptional comedienne, Jenny Eclair, and seated on my left we have that lovely comedian as well, Julian Clary, and beside him another great comic figure and talented writer, Gyles Brandreth. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Seated beside me is Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the White Rock Pavilion in the wonderful seaside resort of Hastings. And we have an enthusiastic Sussex audience in front of us as I ask our panel at different times to speak on the subject given them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And let us start with you, Paul. Paul, oh, what an apt subject to begin with. 1066. Paul, can you tell us something about 1066 in this game starting now?
Sitting here in the White Rock Theatre rather than the pavilion which you mentioned earlier, I think to myself, 1066 country. It's not your fault, Nicholas. It changed its name in 1927 when you were last here in a play. If you go to battle, which is not very far from here, that was where indeed they had the most almighty encounter. Strange that that place should be so named, but it was in fact gained its nomenclature after the frenzied fighting that had gone on rather than being known as, oh, that's going to be a place to have a fight, it's called battle. That's twice I've said battle, that's 3 times.
Gyles, you challenge.
A feast of battle.
A feast of battle, yes, so that's the correct challenge of repetition. You take over the subject and you have 29 seconds, 1066, starting now.
When Nicholas first came here and began dialing Hastings 1066, you used to get the knocking shop in Warrior Square. But things have changed since then. In my day, of course, it was 1066 and all that, a wonderful book that I read at my preparatory school. Other boys were beneath the bedclothes reading purloined copies of Lady Chatterley's Lover. But I...
Paul challenged.
Repetition of reading.
That's right, they were all reading, weren't they? You were reading it, they were reading it.
You were reading it, they were reading it. Is that the tide going out?
Audience, those are the rules of the game. Right, Paul, a correct challenge, and you have 8 seconds, and you have 1066, and you start now.
I bought a very cheap digital watch on one occasion, and I looked at it, and it told me the time was 1066. I thought, this is unbelievable.
Whoever is speaking in this game when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton, and he has got 2 points at the end of the round. Gyles has got 1. The other 2 have yet to speak. And Jenny, will you begin the next round? The subject now, the Midas touch. Will you tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
This comes from bad King Midas, who wished that everything he touched turned to gold. A whim that backfired when all his food and drink turned into precious metal he could not imbibe or eat. What could he do? He had to wash away that what he wished for in the river.
Julian challenge.
Well, she did do repetition, if she
Of
didn't
what?
do hesitation earlier on, of what? The word what?
That's quite true, you did, actually.
Is he allowed to do that?
No, I don't think so, but I just said so. In other words, it's never happened before, but it is a correct challenge. So within the rules of just a minute, I suppose, just correct challenge. So you've got the subject. And you've got 39 seconds on the Midas touch. Julian, starting now.
Once in the souks of Marrakesh, I met a man called Tom Midas. He had the Midas touch, I can tell you. He was a qualified masseur as I lay spread eagle on...
Paul challenged.
Tom Midas.
That's what he said his name was. Do you know him?
No, I don't.
And I don't think...
I've got his number.
Tom Midas.
Yes, look under M in the phone book.
I think it's deviation.
Within the rules of just a minute, none of us know whether this Tom Midas exists or not. And we
I've
have
told
to
you he
accept...
does.
I know, I accept your word for that, Julian.
Thank you.
And, but he
He's
has
got a
the
brother
benefit...
called Michael.
Michael Midas?
Yes.
There are 31 seconds, Julian. You have the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, so everybody's had a benefit of the doubt now. 31 seconds, the Midas touch, starting now.
He had very gifted fingers which got into every nook and cranny down my spine, and I felt very relaxed. As I walked out of that parlour, I felt like a new man. But could I find one?
Jenny Challenge.
Felt twice. He was probably felt all over loads of times, but on this occasion he was felt twice.
He was felt twice, Jenny, yes. You have a correct challenge. You have 22 seconds. Tell us something more about the Midas touch, starting now.
Lots of people are said to have the Midas touch. People like, oh no, I've done it, I know what I did.
Yes, and Julian was the first to challenge.
Yes, repetition.
Of people?
Yes.
Right, well done. The 19 seconds, Julian, the Midas touch, starting now.
He was also a very good gardener, and he came round...
Giles challenge.
Earlier he'd been a good masseur.
He'd been a good masseur, now he's a good gardener. Repetition of good, yes. So, Giles, you got in on the subject of the Midas touch. 16 seconds, starting now.
A little sleep, a touch of slumber, some folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a vagabond, and want like an armed man, it says in the book of Proverbs, because, frankly, the Bible doesn't believe in the Midas touch.
I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought maybe it was deviation.
We can't start challenging if we don't know what other people are talking about. It'll just be a programme with endless bell ringing in it.
I'm sure a lot of us didn't know, but it was very impressive.
Yeah.
What he was.
And it was, he quoted it from the Proverbs, which is even more impressive. So,
Is he allowed to use other people's material?
It's a God-given gift.
I think we do this all the time in this game. Right, Giles, the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, the Midas touch, 6 seconds, starting now.
The point is, labour has to be endured before you can actually make any money. Lord Finchley tried to mend the electric light.
So at the end of that round, they've all been getting points. Gyles Brandreth has moved now into the lead, one ahead of Julian, and Paul's now in third place, just ahead of Jenny Eclair. And Giles, it's your turn to begin.
How embarrassing.
Isn't it exciting?
Yes. I must say, telling the score knocks that audience into a state of ecstasy, doesn't it?
You've whipped them up into a coma.
Oh, that's right. But I do get letters from listeners. They do like to know the state of play as the show progresses.
Nicholas, I write those letters. Doesn't get any letters.
Yeah. Right, Giles, your turn to begin. The subject, Great Expectations. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Great Expectations is a novel by Charles Dickens, written, I think, in about 1860, probably his 13th novel, the one that followed...
Julian Challenge.
Blast. Blast.
No, don't be cross, because it was a mistake. I said repetition of novel.
That's right, it is.
Oh, I was right, was I?
You were right, yes.
Oh, OK.
Yes.
Hurrah.
53 seconds, Great Expectations, Julian, starting now.
When I heard I was coming to Hastings, I had great expectations. A beautiful afternoon in July. I'll be sitting on the beach, I thought, tucking into my sandwiches. But as I drove into town, the heavens opened and there was a clap of thunder. My little dog, Valerie, who's sitting backstage in a dressing room, was all a quiver. She doesn't like big bad noises. noises. You should see her on fireworks night. She has to be sedated.
Paul challenged.
Repetition of she.
That's right, she, yes. Paul, 29 seconds. Great Expectations, starting now.
As Tom Midas walked towards me, I had great expectations. I'd heard Julian's recommendations and I knew I was up for something special. He stripped.
Julian challenged.
He didn't believe he existed 2 minutes ago.
Yes, but when I gave you the benefit of the doubt and you carried on talking...
Well, suddenly he remembered.
I've texted him.
Now, we did establish within the rules just a minute that he did exist. That's why you were allowed to continue talking about him. But we did enjoy your interruption, so we'll give you a bonus point for that, Julian.
Okay, keep your hands
Paul,
off him.
you were interrupted. So you have another point, and you have 19 seconds still. Great Expectations starting now.
Mickey Midas. I've said Midas 3 times.
Jenny.
He said Midas 3 times.
I know he did. Right, Jenny, a point to you in 17 seconds. Great Expectations starting now.
I haven't read it. Hopefully the BBC will adapt it on Sunday evenings.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of B.
BBC.
You're biting the hand that's feeding you.
I know.
Well, how?
It isn't.
The BBC's paying you for this gig.
Yes.
I don't know.
Right. But it was a repetition of B.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yes, so, Paul, you have a correct challenge. 15 seconds more about Great Expectations starting now.
The Midases are wonderful...
Giles challenge.
Back to this Midas family.
Yes.
No, Midas and Midases. I said the Midases that time, being plural.
No, but it's M-I-D-A-S apostrophe, and therefore it's the same spelling of Midas, a repetition of the word Midas.
This is the Midases. How can
No mention of punctuation marks or apostrophes in the rules of this game. And I'm hoping the respect I showed earlier will now pay off.
I thought he was talking about more than one Midas when he said Midases.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if it's the correct word or not.
I don't think there is a Mrs. Midas, not from what Julian said,
How do you
anyway.
Well,
How do you spell parsons in the plural? Parsons with an apostrophe, the point is.
Yes, but
that's the point.
But we are working in the realm of spoken word and not the written word.
Yes.
So we don't
So
put...
it's the same spoken word.
He said Midases, which is sounds different to Midas.
Yeah.
He was speaking the punctuation.
But he still said Midases, which was not Midas, so within the rules of just a minute, as I understand them, and I have been playing the game for 40 years now...
So respect counts for nothing.
Fight!
No.
You hold this programme together, Nicholas. You really do.
You've definitely got the subject now. No, you have the subject, because...
So you're not interested in respect, but fawning you like.
No. Interested in trying to...
You're conservative, Gyles. You must understand these things.
I try to stick to the rules and see justice and fair play. But by Paul, you had the benefit of the doubt. 13 seconds, The Great Expectations, still with you, starting now.
Great Expectations is, of course, one of the greatest books in the English language. When Charles Dickens composed this magnificent work, he was able to place himself in the ranks of other fine English writers of the period.
Giles challenge.
I think a repetition of the word English.
Yes. On the great English books.
Yes, could be.
Yes, right.
To be honest, I wasn't really listening. Something I have in common with everybody else in this theatre.
So,
or pavilion.
You've got in. And you'll be pleased to hear you only have 1 second, Giles, on Great Expectations, starting now.
It's an amazing movie as well.
So... Jenny Eclair, who's given us great value already, but she is training a little in fourth place. But out there in front, Gyles and Paul, Merton and Julian, Clary both are equal, just one ahead. Right, Julian, Welsh Rarebit. Will you talk about that in this game, starting now?
Welsh Rarebit is a rather exotic name for a fairly simple dish. I believe it's just cheese on toast, get it down you, go to bed, mind your own business. Got nothing to do with Wales, got nothing to do with rabbits.
Jenny challenge.
Got nothing.
2 nothings to do.
And 2 doo-doos.
Yeah.
Doodles?
49 seconds, Welsh Rarebit. Jenny, starting now.
I like to put a bit of Marmite on my toast, then grate cheddar cheese. There's nothing Welsh, as Julian said, unless you use Caerphilly, which is a cheese from that region. Yeah, I know what I've done.
Giles.
Too cheesy.
2 cheeses. I mean,
Yeah, full of cheese.
But possibly the first cheese was in the singular and the second one was in the plural. And therefore it won't be allowed, and she'll get an extra point.
This has really got to you, hasn't it, Gyles?
Well, it's just a thought. It's a thought.
I admire the purity you have about the English language, but we are playing a game, so I have to play within the rules of that. But that is a correct challenge.
Thank you.
You have therefore 39 seconds on Welsh Rabbit starting now.
Was when I was in some...
Paul Charles.
Hesitation, sadly, at a crucial time.
I know, at a crucial time. You did stumble a little, didn't you?
I was just puckering my lips.
It was very beautiful, Gyles.
It was.
We were quite moved. So we give you the benefit of the doubt, Gyles, and say you have 38 seconds still on Welsh Rabbit, starting now.
Theatrical digs in Swansea are amazing places. I stayed at one where I was introduced to the initials LDO in the visitor's book, standing for Landlady's Daughter Obliges. Her name was Miss Van Way, and she was a Welsh rabbit.
Julian challenged.
It was a long time coming, the connection to Welsh Rarebit.
No, forgive me, I began in Swansea, that's Welsh. I have a cousin who's a Midas.
Actually, Julian, you're quite right. You challenged before he got to the Welsh Rabbit. And he had...
Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I began by saying Swansea, which we know is a town in South Wales. Yeah. I brought in the Welsh connection. I then led on to Miss Van Way, who was indeed a rare bit. You may even have known her yourself.
No, that's why I want to get away from the subject.
Gyles, is this program the biggest thing in your life? It is.
Any game is the biggest thing in his life. And I love his enthusiasm and his commitment to games. Yeah. No, I want to be utterly fair here. You were taking a long time getting to the Welsh Rabbit, and you were challenged before you got there. So, Julian, you have Welsh Rabbit, 24 seconds, starting now.
Anyone got a stun gun? The thing about Welsh Rarebit, it's a marvellous combination of protein and carbohydrate. If you think about the actual content and break it down, bread being one, and cheese...
repetition of cheese.
Yes, we've got the cheese.
Yes, a lot of cheese about.
Yes. So, Paul, you've got 12 seconds now on Welsh Rabbit, starting now.
John Charles, the Welsh centre forward, was a magnificent footballer. He moved to...
Giles challenge.
There's not been a lot of mention of Welsh Rabbit yet. I ought to explain.
I said the word Welsh.
I know. I said the word Swansea. And,
yes, but
I ought to put this in context. I mean, I have to say, yes, of course, I'm frantic to win. I'm desperate to win. It wasn't been mentioned. I was a Conservative Member of Parliament. I've faced humiliation in my time. When I was rejected, I have to tell you, 82,723 people got up on the same day with the self-same object in mind. Get this bugger out.
Gyles!
I've been trying to claw my way back ever since.
You won't do it via this show. This is what you do on the way down.
Giles, you have a point for your desperate interruption, which the audience enjoyed. A bonus point to you, Giles, for that. And you were interrupted, and
if he doesn't win, he's just going to go on a shooting spree with a town.
Can I have a point for desperation as well?
Yes, darling, as well.
Jenny's been desperate for years. Give her a point.
You keep the subject. 6 seconds, Welsh Rabbit, starting now.
First, you get the cheese. You must... I've not said cheese before.
Jenny.
I thought you had so much cheese, I presumed.
Yeah, you presumed cheese where no cheese existed.
So another point to you, Paul, and 4 seconds on Welsh Rabbit, starting now.
The bread is also very important. Some people like white, others...
Julian challenge.
Repetition of very.
Yes, very important. It was very before.
Well done,
so,
Julian.
Julian, you've got in with half a second to go on Welsh Rabbit, starting now.
Welsh Rarebit.
Giles, you challenged before the whistle?
Yes, I did.
And what was it? Hesitation.
Hesitation.
Yes. Right, you've got it.
Nicholas, do us a favour. Don't give it to him and see what happens.
No.
His head will go round.
No, it's quarter of a second for you, Giles, on Welsh Rabbit, starting now. So I said it was very close. Jenny Eclair did, unfortunately, finish just in 4th place, but she did wonderfully, wonderful. A rare bit that was. And Jenny, would you take the next round? The subject is like a fishwife. Will you tell us something about that subject?
Impressions.
I don't see why I should get this round. Have we started?
No, we haven't started yet.
Sorry, I sounded a bit like a fishwife then, didn't I?
No, you haven't got to sound like a fishwife.
Oh,
I mean, there are a lot of wives of fishwomen down here, so, it's...
You're thinking of mermaids, fish women, aren't you?
There are a lot of
Mermaids,
people
fish
who
women.
work in the fish industry because they bring in the cod and other things to this place
Yes, they
here,
do.
and they are they're wives of fishermen.
Yeah.
And they're called fishwives.
Yes.
Would you talk on that subject, Jenny? 60 seconds starting now.
I'm not like a fishwife because my partner is a designer. Unfortunately, we're not married, so I am no wife at all. I am a designer's partner. There you go. It's a
Gyles challenge.
Designer.
There's a couple of designers in there.
Was it designer and designers?
Yes.
No.
No.
It was an apostrophe.
Single and plural.
We're not going down the apostrophe route, Gyles.
I want you to know-
You have the subject, and we have 50 seconds like a fishwife starting now.
Do you recall Margaret Beckett?
Paul challenge.
No, I don't.
Right, Paul, give him a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. That goes to Paul. Giles was interrupted, so he gets a point, keeps the subject, and there are 48 seconds like a fishwife starting now.
The former Foreign Secretary was not admired as much at Westminster as she should have been. In fact, she was a much jollier person than you would have thought. Gooser, and she livened up no end. But I was very distressed on the occasion when...
I haven't heard the word fish or wife yet.
Yeah, I'm about to tell the story of how somebody called her a fishwife and how I came to try to defend her. But I'm happy to lose points. It's obviously...
We know the story now.
That's fine.
This happened once before, and you had the benefit of the doubt against you. You have the benefit of the doubt for you on this occasion. You have like a fishwife still. You have 40 seconds starting now.
Fishes actually do mate, and so you could actually be a fish that had a husband and a fish...
Paul challenge.
Actually, twice.
Oh,
yes, indeed, yes. So
yes,
Paul,
I'm happy to lose the point.
Yeah.
you actually haven't lost a point, Giles. Paul has gained
Yeah,
one.
he's moving into the lead, if that's what he's up to, that's what he wants, you know. Seems to matter to him, but there we are, you know. Some of us have a more relaxed approach to life, I guess.
Paul, 37 seconds. Tell us something about Like a Fishwife starting now.
Madonna's follow-up single to Like a Virgin was Like a Fishwife. And what a wonderful song it was. I can remember her now on Top of the Pops dancing away, and it was indeed one of those disco backbeat songs that gets the kids dancing in the discotheques of today's Britain. Fishwives.
Jenny, challenge.
I really hate to challenge it because it's very good, but dancing twice.
There was dancing twice.
Why do you hate the challenge?
Because I like the picture of Madonna dancing like a fishwife.
Yeah.
But Jenny, you have the point and you have the subject and you have 22 seconds like a fishwife starting now.
And she danced with fish, raw fish all around her. Madonna the fishwife,
Giles.
swearing.
Oi, 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 oi.
Hang on. Oi, 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 oi. What's happened to Radio 4? Oi, 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 oi.
I'm sorry, the subject's got to me. Oi, 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 yeah, right. Giles, you challenged.
Naturally, I don't want a point for this, but I imagine on the card it's like a fishwife, fishwife being one word, and therefore when we have fish on its own as a separate word and it's heard three
That's
times in the
correct.
sentence...
That's correct, Giles.
That's fine.
No, you have the point. You have the correct challenge. She repeated fish, and you have 20 seconds to tell us something about Like a Fishwife starting now.
Can you imagine these deep-sea creatures going in for civil partnerships, probably conducted by Neptune himself? He would get together some amusing seals and aqua beasts of different kinds, and there on the rocks with mermaids and mermen, they would together have this strange seaweed-like experience where the fishwife would say, "Ah, to thee I give mine."
Now, I think we're moving into the last round.
Oh.
Well, 4 people are disappointed. It's a very close contest if you want to know the situation as we move into this final round. Jenny Eclair, who's given it great value already, but she is training a little in 4th place. But out there in front, Gyles is on 12 points. And Paul, Merton and Julian, Clary both are equal with 13, only just one ahead. So, anybody's contest. And it's Julian's turn to begin. And subject. Right, Julian. The subject, oh, so apt for the seaside, bucket and spade. Tell us something about that subject in this game, Julian, starting now.
When I was a little boy and we went on holiday, I used to love my bucket and spade, but unlike other children who might build a sandcastle, I created a discotheque. And people...
Jenny, challenge.
It's a shame because he hesitated. I was enjoying the story.
I don't think he hesitated. He just gave a little gentle, dramatic pause, and he hadn't
forgot
really.
what he was saying next.
No, I think it's one of those things. Like, benefit of the doubt. You didn't hesitate enough. 49 seconds. Bucket and spade, Julian. Starting now.
Or a disco. Entrance was very reasonable. You had to wear trunks. Obviously, it wasn't that kind of arrangement. People would come from resorts for miles around and form a...
Gyles, challenge.
I felt there was a hesitation then.
No, there wasn't. I think he's going quite consistently with his own speech pattern.
Yeah.
Yes?
I'm so sorry. I didn't realise that he had that speech pattern. It's unusual to invite somebody with a hesitant speech pattern onto this particular programme.
Gyles, you'd be amazed at the people they invite onto this programme.
And Gyles, you try so hard in the show, which we love, but you were really pushing it. But no, benefit of the doubt to you, Julian, and carry on. Bucket and spade, and you have 40 seconds starting now.
Starting to imagine I'm hesitating now. Anyway, the other thing you can do with a bucket and spade is go down to the sea itself and scoop up some water in your upturned bucket, take it back to your whatever you might have built, and...
Jenny, challenge.
Two built.
Yes, you built before, I'm afraid. So, Jenny, you have a correct challenge of repetition. You have 26 seconds to tell us something about bucket and spade, starting now.
Bucket and spade, doesn't it sound like Cockney rhyming slang? I just got bucket and spade, babe.
Paul, yes.
I caught a speech pattern from Julian there. Did you see?
Hesitation.
That was a definite
Wasn't it?
hesitation.
It was in
Just?
character, my character that I was performing there.
Yes, I think you should stay to your own character, Jenny.
all right.
It's probably better, easy in the show. But, so, Paul, yes, hesitation, we call that. 20 seconds, bucket and spade, starting now.
Tommy Bucket and Sammy Spade were the best double act in the 1930s. Nicholas worked with them often. He was the sort of individual that would go up to them and say, "You are fantastic, Bucket, and Spade, you've done it again." In the audience one night was Tom Midas. What an extraordinary figure to see him there as Bucket and Spade.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton. Jenny Eclair did, unfortunately, finish just in fourth place, but she did wonderfully, wonderful. But out in front was Gyles Brandreth, Julian Clary, and Paul Merton, and they all finished up equal with the same number of points. We have a triple winner! No one's a loser in
Jenny
this
is.
game.
I am. I'm almost proud of
Anyway,
that.
I was incorrect, Jenny. We had 3 winners, and you were in second place.
Yes.
Oh, Jenny, winning isn't important.
Oh, Gyles, and you demonstrated all the time. Thank you to these 4 delightful, wonderful, exciting players of the game. Paul Merton, Jenny Eclair, Gyles Brandreth, Julian Clary. I think Trudy Stevens, who sat beside me, helped me with the score, blown her whistle so delicately. We're grateful to our producer, Toulouse Galani. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this lovely game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience here in Hastings at the White Rock Theatre, who've cheered us on our way of magnificent games. Thank you, thank you, thank you. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the panel, goodbye. Tune in, listeners, the next time we play Just a Minute.
And there'll be more Just a Minute next Monday at 6:30.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 intelligent, talented players of the game, and they are seated on my right. One of the stalwart players of the show, that outstanding comedian Paul Merton, and seated beside him we have our veteran player of the game, that's Clement Freud, and seated on my left we have another fine comedian who's quite a regular, the player, a comedian and a writer as well, that is Tony Hawks, and seated beside him someone who's never played the game before, a virgin of just a minute. He's got the sympathy already, and it's a pleasure to welcome Dave Gorman. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the recently refurbished Radio Theatre in the heart of Broadcasting House. And we have a magnificent audience in front of us. We'll start the show with Paul Merton. Paul, the subject is Radio Times, how apt for the new refurbished Radio Theatre. Would you talk on that subject? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I would like to apologise, first of all, for the late running of this radio recording. That is because I left my keys in a black cab, and we phoned the driver and he's got them, but he also asked for my address, so I've got a feeling that by the time the show is over, there'll be nothing left when I get home. This building has seen some remarkable radio shows over the years. It's That Man Again, starring Tommy Handley, was produced here in the 1940s with the royal attendance of King George and the woman he married, Queen Mary, probably. Or was she a boat?
Right, and Clement, you've challenged?
Definitely.
Definitely, not probably.
It was very dark, he might not have brought her. Might not have been her.
So, what are you challenging on within the rules of Just a Minute?
Not hesitation.
No.
What are the other?
Possible deviation.
Devolution.
Devolution, no.
No.
Inaccuracy, but I don't think it was, strictly speaking, deviating from the subject. He said possibly married to her, and she was married. So, Paul, you carry on, and you've got 35 seconds starting now.
The Radio Times is an august publication, but it also comes out during the other 11 months of the year as well. It was first produced in 1932, and the cover star was a young...
that is... Tony, you've challenged.
Repetition of 19.
Yes, you had 19 before, yes. Well, listen, Tony, so you're going to talk about Radio Times. You have 26 seconds available, and your time starts now.
I've always thought it's entirely wrong that they put the TV listings in the Radio Times. It's not right. It's the same as when you go to radio rentals. You can't rent one of those in there. This is the sort of thing that goes on in this country, and it must stop. And if an august publication like the Radio Times can't get it right, honestly, where and how are we going to do this? Now, having said all...
Paul, I think it was your light. What is your challenge?
I think Tony had sort of rather wandered off the subject, and even by the bemused look on his face, he no longer believed what he was saying.
He had a bemused look on his face.
Did he?
I should explain that too, because I know
it's
you've got new
repetition,
listeners.
man.
Yeah.
Yes, but he didn't actually deviate from the subject of Radio Times. So you have an incorrect challenge. You get a point for that, of course, Tony. You keep the subject. You've got 3 seconds available, starting now.
There's nothing I like more of an evening than to go home and...
Wait a minute. Clement has challenged.
Repetition of nothing.
Nothing?
Yeah, he said nothing before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Clement, you've cleverly got in with 1 second to go. 1 second, Clement, on Radio Times, starting now.
I used to write.
Dave Gorman, you've challenged.
I just wanted to see that my microphone worked, that my buzzer worked. I wanted to say something during the first game.
And you've said it. We'll give you a bonus point for that. Because the audience enjoyed hearing from you, and thank you for establishing your presence. Well done. Clement, you've got half a second on Radio Times, starting now.
Radio Times.
In this game, whoever is speaking as the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was, of course, Clement Freud. And he gets one because he was interrupted there, so it's 3. Yes, he's in a lead, strong lead. He had 3 points. Who cares about the points? Tony Hawks is second in the other. Clement! Will you take the next round, or will you start the next round? The subject now is the wrong note. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
It is quite difficult for me to talk about the wrong note because I'm tone dumb, in view of which, and because so many people have had a rotten time because of the weather, let us have a 1-minute silence.
Starting from when? Have we started it? Has it started?
It started, yes, it started. But Tony couldn't resist it. You challenged, Tony.
Repetition of because.
Ah, well. So you respected the 1-minute silence, but you couldn't get a repetition go by. Tony, correct challenge. 46 seconds are available. Tell us something about the wrong note starting now.
Don't give someone a £5 if you owe them a tenner, because you will be giving them the wrong note.
Paul, your challenge, yes.
Yes, well, it's not necessarily the wrong note. You could be paying off 50% of your debt. They're not going to turn it down, are they? It's not the wrong note, it's a contributory note, but it's not a wrong note. It's not like a doctor's note. Here's that 10 quid a year. Look, there's a, take that to the chemist to get a bottle of medicine for it. It's not that sort of note, is it?
No, I think actually you were being given the wrong note, because it should have been a tenner, not a £5.
Really?
Yes. So I think logically, probably, Tony is correct.
All right, then.
So you have the benefit of the doubt, Tony. And you have 39 seconds still on the wrong note starting now.
If you are a singer, it's advisable to try and get the right note, because the audience will be pleased by it.
And Paul's challenge
well,
again.
deviation, he's talking about the right note now, and of course, he should be talking about the wrong note.
I gave the benefit of the doubt to Tony that time, and you shall have it this time, Paul. You have the subject, the wrong note, 34 seconds, starting now.
A friend of mine committed suicide, but he left his shopping list as a suicide note. It was very confusing. His last words were £3 of potatoes.
Dave, you challenge.
I think repetition of suicide.
Yeah.
Yes, probably.
Yes.
Committed suicide and left a
he left a
suicide note.
suicide note.
Yes.
And well done. Well, listen, Dave, you've got the subject now. And you have the suicide... No, you have the wrong note. And you have 29 seconds, Dave, starting now.
Doe, a deer, a female one. Ray, a drop of signing shun.
And Paul challenged.
Signing shun. This is a Chinese influence that's creeping into the programme.
Yeah, he signs for the Chinese deaf.
Ah, I withdraw my challenge.
I thought you were going to have a deviation from English as we understand it, but you've handed it back to Dave. You can continue, Dave. You have 24 seconds, the wrong note starting now.
Once when I was at school, I asked my mother to give me a note to get me out of physical education. Later that day, when I got to the phys ed class, I handed the note to the teacher, and I think my mother had given him the...
Clement. You've got the audience with you, Dave. But Clement, you challenge.
2 mothers.
2 mothers, yes. 1 mother, yes. That's sufficient.
I have got 2 mothers.
13 seconds, Clement, the wrong note starting now.
If you go to a Chinese laundry with the wrong note, you're very likely to receive somebody else's washing, which has never, to my mind, been a satisfactory way of looking after your wardrobe.
Clement Freud was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and in the situation of points overall, he's just increased his lead. He's 1 ahead of Tony Hawks, 2 ahead of Dave Gorman, and 3 ahead of Paul Merton. Dave, will you begin the next round? Rhyme or reason? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Rhyme or reason, a terrible choice for any poet to have to make. The 2 words, rhyme and reason, are normally parcelled together when someone wishes to denote the absence of the 2 of them. Something is said to contain neither rhyme nor reason, when it not only...
Tony challenged.
Was there a repetition of 2 in there?
Yes, there was, I'm afraid.
I'm hot on numbers tonight. Yeah.
So, Tony, correct challenge, 46 seconds. Tell us something about rhyme or reason, starting now.
I think it was Shakespeare first popularised this expression in one of his plays. Can't remember which, doesn't matter. Quite boring information anyway. But rhyme or reason is a motivation for doing something. People will often say, what is your rhyme or reason for appearing on Just a Minute? I tell them the money. Huge amounts of it come our way as a result of performing on this show, let me tell you. However, if I tell you too much...
Paul challenge.
2 tells.
2 tells, yes.
I tell.
And I'm surprised someone didn't have you for deviation for the amount of money we get on the show.
Obviously, it's only you, Nicholas, on the poor money.
I'm a good foil for them. Give them a bonus point because they enjoyed his remark. Tony, Paul, you have a correct challenge. You get a point for that. You have 22 seconds to tell us something about rhyme or reason, starting now.
If you were a detective at Scotland Yard, which method would you employ to solve your toughest cases? Would it be rhyme or reason? The victim was in the car park just after dark.
Tony, you're challenged.
He's hit the wrong note.
Absolutely right note.
Absolutely right, Tony, but it wasn't this subject, was it? So, as the audience enjoyed your interruption, we give you a bonus point for that. But Paul was interrupted, so he gets a point for that. He keeps the subject, and there are 8 seconds still available, Paul. Rhyme or reason, starting now.
I'm so thrilled there are 8 seconds left on this subject because it brings me to a point where I must address the very serious issues. Oh, you!
And Tony challenged again.
Well, I think that's deviation. I think he's clearly padded out the entire 8 seconds by not discussing the subject in question, by just talking about the amount of time that he has to talk about it.
Oh, I think it's a rather devious challenge, actually. No, listen,
popular. There's 3 people agree with you. And you wanted 2 of them round foot.
You got around a bit. No, I think you could have had him for hesitation, but it's too late now.
Yeah, could have done.
Yes.
As you say, Neil.
That's what I would have gone for myself.
Yes, but no, I think, Paul, you have the benefit of the doubt with half a second on rhyme or reason, starting now.
Rhyme or...
So, Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went with other points in the round, has moved forward. He's now equal with Tony Hawks, who are 1 ahead of Clement Freud, and then Dave Gorman. And Tony, will you begin the next round? The subject, well, it's a very musical show, this, isn't it? Rock and roll. Will you tell us something about rock and roll? You should know a bit about that. You know, it was sort of your group, wasn't it? Something major and the minors.
Morris Minor and the Majors.
Morris Minor and the Majors. Right.
It's the same 3 people clapping again. Going on?
That's the Majors.
Yeah, we didn't do that much rock and roll, it has to be said.
What was it then?
Well, is this going to count towards my 60 seconds?
I'm sorry, yes. Well, Morris Minor and the Majors. You have rock and roll, and you have a minute, of course, starting now.
Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. I would go on, but I don't want to hit the wrong note and upset anybody. Rock and roll, of course, is a marvellous idea invented by I don't know who some time ago. And 4 beats to the bar, you can't go into a discotheque without hearing some rock and roll, and particularly at weddings. Very popular there, I've noticed. I actually have played rock and roll with a band called Morris Minor and the Majors, who go back some time ago. And in spite of the fact that the
Paul, what was your challenge?
Well, it was the assertion that if you can go into a disco at any time and hear rock and roll, and I was going to say not when they're closed.
Yeah, but I think you're speaking colloquially. I mean, you mean that when you go into a disco, you wouldn't try and get into a disco which was shut. You'd only go into a disco that was open, wouldn't you?
Well, you could be a burglar with a sense of rhythm.
And then you could go even further and say somebody might have left the player on. It was still playing rock and roll.
The player? What, the thing that you wind up that's got the dog looking in the big loudspeaker?
That's right, the old loudspeaker, the player. Oh, this dates me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Tony, I think you should have the benefit of the doubt. I think you're speaking colloquially, going into a disco and you would hear your rock and roll.
Yeah.
21 seconds, still available.
The player was still going.
Well, if you have something playing, I mean, if it's not a record player, what is it then?
iPod?
21 seconds, Tony. Rock and roll with you, starting now.
Just let me hear some of that rock and roll music. The Beatles covered that song, and what a fine beat group they were. They certainly weren't ashamed of playing.
And Clement challenge.
I think 2 days with
yes,
only
there were too many days. They were, and they did that. Right. Clement, you've got him with 12 seconds on rock and roll, starting now.
I think a smoked streaky bacon roll is one of my very favourites. Although the rock, as long as it comes from Brighton.
Paul, you've
challenged him
hesitation.
for repeatedly looking at me.
No. Clement, I think we had to put up with whatever we're given in this particular show, and so you did hesitate. Paul, the benefit of the doubt. And you have the subject with 3 seconds on rock and roll starting now.
Since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell.
So Paul Merton was again speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, has increased his lead. He's just ahead of Tony Hawks, Clement, Freud, Dave Gorman, in that order. And Paul, will you begin the next round? The subject is even the odds. 60 seconds on that subject, starting now.
Even the odds, I suppose this is a phrase that indicates you should do your best to level the situation. Try and make it 50-50 if you can. Because when the odds are against you, there's nothing you can do but make sure that you restore the balance. When the captain of the Titanic heard there was an iceberg in his way, he didn't panic. No, he drowned. And that's the sort of thing that we British are brilliant at. Show me a hero and I will demonstrate a man who went to public school. The finest educational system this country's ever come up with. When we look at the...
And Clement challenged.
Bollocks.
Was that the school motto?
I think whatever happens, Clement, I give you a bonus point for bollocks.
He gets a bonus point for saying bollocks?
Well, look at the reaction it got.
Oh, fair enough.
I suppose in this show, yes, because we don't usually say it in this show.
No.
It's much more circumspect in our
Yeah,
language.
much more so.
But what was your challenge within the rules of just a minute, Clement?
Well,
I thought public
I was-
schools giving the finest education. I mean...
Well,
just
it's
because-
debatable. It's some people think they do and others think they don't.
That's
so
why
it's a
I
very
voted.
difficult decision to
That's
make.
why I buzzed. Because it's debatable.
And you went to one yourself. So,
He gave it as a factual statement. And as you've just said, it's debatable.
I don't think you can say that that they are bollocks, the public schools. So, and this is not prejudice because whether you agree with the state system or not, the private system does give a good education. So, Paul, you have the benefit of the doubt. And you have 27 seconds starting now.
I went to St Paul's, which is, of course, Cockney rhyming slang, and what a wonderful institution it was. I can remember walking across the quadrangle with my mortarboard.
And Tony challenged.
I think we've got off the subject a bit, haven't we? Even the odds, we seem to be on education.
We do indeed.
Oh, I completely forgot what the subject was. I completely forgot.
It can happen. So, Tony, a correct challenge.
That's
Deviation.
comprehensive education for you.
19 seconds available, even the odds, starting now.
There are a lot of odd people around, and I call them the odds. And even the odds are nice people to spend time with if you want to.
Clement, you challenged.
Repetition of people.
Clement, a correct challenge. You have 12 seconds on even the odds, starting now.
Even the odds against being able to send your children to a private school are getting longer and increasingly long. It is a sad thing because there are many who believe...
Dave challenged.
Getting longer and increasingly long is deviation of... I mean, it's the same thing,
No,
isn't
it's
it?
language.
Bollocks.
No, Dave, I see your logic, but within the rules of just a minute, it's language we were concerned with, and he wasn't deviating.
But if something's getting long and increasingly longer...
No, it was the other way around.
Longer.
OK. If something is getting longer and also increasingly long, it implies the two are separate things. And they're not. They're the same thing.
Well, he was emphasising that fact, as far as I was concerned.
I'm only saying it's debatable.
I'm afraid we haven't got time for debates in just a minute, so I have to make a quick decision, and this is a rather slow decision. But, Clement, the benefit of the doubt, you have 2 seconds still available, even the odds, starting now.
Even the odds means that if you get exactly what you...
Clement Freud was then speaking as the whistle went, and with other points in the round, he has taken the lead, 1 ahead of Paul Merton, 2 ahead of Tony Hawks, and a few ahead of Dave Gorman. And Clement, it's actually back with you to begin, so the subject now is very apt for you, high office. Will you tell us something about high office in just a minute, starting now?
There are idiots who go to work and come in and say, "Hi, office, good morning, desk. Hello, secretary. What are you going to do about it, doorman? Goodbye, lift." I don't believe that that sort of language is remotely apposite for those who hold high office, which means...
Tony challenge. Tony, what was your challenge?
I think he hesitated at the end there.
Yes, he did. I mean, it was going so well. I think he got carried away with the audience reaction, actually. But
I did like Goodbye Lift.
Haven't you never said goodbye to a lift?
No, have you?
Oh, yes, sometimes. I say goodnight to the cooker at night before I go up and say switched off. Good night, cooker.
And does the cooker talk back to you?
No, unfortunately, no.
Because that would be a sign of mental illness, wouldn't it?
But no, my cooker is entirely sane. He hasn't got any...
I'm sure the cooker...
All right, who challenged? It was you, Tony. Right, so you have 39 seconds. High office starting now.
A high office is one that has been caught smoking cannabis, no question about that. But we won't go into that because it's been recently reclassified. However, I've never held high office myself, other than working for a while at Eastern Khayyam Carpets, where I had a lot of responsibility. But nevertheless, it couldn't really count as high office. Clement, on the other hand, was a member of Parliament for some considerable time in his lifetime, and we admire him for that greatly. Nicholas Parsons, sit in the middle here.
Oh, what a pity. You've interrupted, Clement.
Repetition of time.
Yes, a repetition
in his
of
time and his lifetime.
I know. Yes,
Yeah, but lifetime's one word.
Quite right, you said lifetime the first time, and this was time. Sorry, Clement, an incorrect challenge. 10 seconds, still with you, Tony. It's starting now.
If I had a high office, I would dangle a ladder from outside the window and go out that way. Then I wouldn't have to say goodbye to the lift.
And, Paul challenged.
Well, it's very dangerous to just dangle a ladder out the window. You want it here on solid ground. You want to be on solid ground, not dangling out of the window. It's very dangerous to dangle a window
well,
out.
I reserve the right to play with my own life in the way I see fit.
Well, health and safety issues are very important these days, but, well, if that's the way you want to do it, you do it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong in saying that you dangle a ladder out of a window. It's a pretty ridiculous thing to do. But on the other hand, he might do ridiculous things. We don't know, do we?
No.
So I have to give him the benefit of the doubt on this occasion and say 3 seconds. Tony, high office starting now.
Where is the highest office? Is it in the NatWest building?
Right. So, I see we're moving into the final round. Oh, you are lovely, aren't you? Yes. So let me give you the situation as we go in. Dave Gorman is training a little, but he hasn't played the game as much as others. He's a few points behind Paul Merton, who's 1 point behind Clement Freud, and Clement is 2 or 3 points behind Tony Hawkes, who's now in the lead as we begin this last round. And Dave, it's back with you to start, and the subject is giant strides. Will you tell us something about giant strides in 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
Someone who always took giant strides was Robert Wadlow, the tallest man to ever walk this earth. At about 8 feet and 11 inches, he was mentioned frequently by Roy Castle and Norris McWhirter on record breakers. His tailor was also very skilled at making giant strides, as he had to be, for the aforementioned gentleman to wear them.
Dave, you challenged yourself.
Hesitation.
I was going to ask you a challenge. Well, actually, you're quite right. You did hesitate.
It was as clear as anything.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I suppose that you have to have a point because you did hesitate and you keep the subject. But all I can say is don't make a habit of this because you could ruin the whole process of the game. So if you want to continue now, you have 39 seconds, giant strides, starting now.
Science and technology have been making giant strides in recent times. Whatever you think about cloning and the rest of it, it's no doubt about it that people are living longer, cars are safer, computers are getting more powerful and smaller. In other fields, for example, television, people are making giant strides, not necessarily...
And you forgot to challenge yourself then.
Well, they did tell me not to.
Yeah.
Yes, but people don't always do what I tell them.
Your cooker does.
Tony.
Well, I would have let it go, but I thought I'd better challenge for hesitation before he did.
Oh, no. Well, what was your challenge this time?
Hesitation.
Yes, he did hesitate. Right. Do you have 23 seconds now, Tony, to tell us something about giant strides starting now?
Sting wrote about giant strides in a way in his song Walking on the Moon. Giant steps are what you take, he said, whereas in fact you could take little steps if you were wearing bedroom slippers, for instance.
And Paul challenged.
We had a couple of takes. But,
yes, you did, yes. Well done, Paul. 12 seconds available still on Giant Strides with you, Paul, starting now.
If you look at the early history of the cinema, you can see from about 1897 onwards giant strides in the making of the motion picture. A director...
And Clement has challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
They weren't that big between...
Huge.
1897.
1897, huge strides.
Yeah, I think it's debatable, but on the other hand...
Is it debatable or is it bollocks? We just don't know.
It depends upon your interpretation of how rapidly the cinema moved forward. And I agree with you, and I think you have the benefit of the doubt, Paul, and you keep the subject, and you have 3 seconds on Giant Strides starting now.
The Beatles' first album and their 7th album have an enormous...
And Tony challenge. Yes?
Repetition of album.
The album, yes.
Yeah.
So rapidly. And you've cleverly got in with half a second to go, Tony. On Giant Strides starting now.
Sir Winston Churchill.
So let me now give you the final situation. Dave Gorman, who's not played the game before, came from nowhere and finished in a very strong 4th place. But in 3rd place, Clement Freud, but only 1 point behind Paul Merton, but 3 or 4 points ahead of them was Tony Hawks. So we say, Tony, this week you are our winner. So, it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game. I also thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle marvellously when the 60 seconds elapsed. We are grateful to our producer, Talusha Galani, and also we're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game, and we're very grateful to this lovely audience here at the Radio Theatre in the heart of the Broadcasting House, who've cheered us on our way. From our audience here, from me, Nicholas Parsons, from the team, tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Yeah! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and, of course, throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented and extrovert players of this game. It's a great pleasure always to welcome back, sitting on my right, that wonderful, outstanding and popular comedian Paul Merton, and seated beside him we have a young comedian who's making a great name for himself, so we welcome Alan Cochrane. And seated on my left, we have that master of lyrics and musical comedy shows and a dedicated cricket follower, that is Tim Rice. And beside him, we sit another engaging comedy performer and producer, Chris Neal. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation or repetition or deviating from the subject. Beside me sits Charlotte Davies, who's going to help me with a score. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the delightful Everyman Theatre in that really beautiful town of Cheltenham in the heart of Gloucestershire. And we have a wonderful Gloucester audience here, just eager for us to get going. Oh, and Paul, we'd like you to start the show on what a lovely topical subject, the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Can you talk on that subject? 60 seconds, as usual, starting now.
The Cheltenham Gold Cup is one of the oldest races in the racing calendar. In fact, Cheltenham is full of Irish people, I'm told, when it comes round for the Gold Cup season. And what they do is they come to the stations, they stand around in bus queues, they basically eat
Tim, you've challenged.
I think there was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation. So, Tim, you have a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject. There are 47 seconds available. It's the Cheltenham Gold Cup with you starting now.
The Cheltenham Gold Cup dates back about 200 years. It has been won by many distinguished horses, such as Make a Stand, Red Rum, Green Brandy, Yellow Whiskey, Blue Beer.
Chris challenged.
I'm not sure which ones are wrong, but I would suggest that they're not all right.
They were not all right. No, there was no green whiskey, I know for sure. Red rum was there. It was a nice try, Tim, but I agree with you, deviation. So,
that's it, yeah.
Chris, you have a point, and you have 35 seconds to get Cheltenham Gold Cup starting now.
The Cheltenham Gold Cup is a horse race, which is where horses start at the same time, all next to each other, and then they run, and blimey, it's exciting.
Tim, you challenged.
There was a definite hesitation there.
It wasn't definite, but it was enough for me
I think I was with Nicholas on that one. It wasn't definite at all.
But enough for me to grant you a hesitation. Tim, another point to you, and 26 seconds, the Cheltenham Gold Cup starting now. Chris challenged.
Hesitation.
Oh, or should we say retaliation?
Oh, yeah.
No, he didn't hesitate enough. But I tell you what, Chris, to be fair, the audience enjoyed your interruption, so we give you a bonus point for that.
They did over there. Yes, they loved it.
Yeah. Chap up there was...
He hated it, but I'm ignoring him.
He left in disgust.
Anyway, Tim, so you've got another point, and you have the subject. 25 seconds, the Cheltenham Gold Cup starting now.
The entire town of Cheltenham, if not the complete county of Gloucestershire, comes to a grinding halt when this magnificent event takes place in the spring, in March, or possibly in April, if it's a certain time of...
Paul, you challenged.
Narcolepsy.
Yes.
Suddenly fell asleep in the middle of it.
Well,
hesitation.
Hesitation,
I
of course.
myself
yes.
to a halt.
Yes, well, it's obviously a challenging subject for all of you. But there are 11 seconds for you, Paul. The Cheltenham Gold Cup starting now.
One of my fondest pieces of memorabilia is from here, indeed, Cheltenham. The Gold Cup, as it originally was called back in 1876, was stolen by my grandfather from a jeweller's windows. And I should say this now, and the police are still...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Paul Merton. He's alongside Tim Rice in the lead, then Chris Neal, and then Alan Cochrane. But then Alan hasn't spoken yet, so he couldn't have got any points, could he?
Hello.
Could we give him a bonus point for a hello? I don't know. Anyway, Tim, would you take the next round? The subject is cold feet. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I could talk for a long time about penguins on this subject, but I would rather talk about a fantastic band called Cold Feet, which was a combination of cold play...
Paul challenged.
It was a repetition of Talk About.
Yes, I'd rather
Yes, I
talk
admit
about
that.
yes.
I thought...
yes, so that was a repetition. Well, listen, Paul, and you've got in with 51 seconds to go on Cold Feet, starting now.
Cold feet could be down to poor circulation or simply the inability to do something. You've got to rush towards life, grab it by the throat until it's absolutely dead and throttled. And then you can say to yourself, oh, I have got cold feet no more. I have got, in fact, hot.
Chris challenge.
2 I have.
I have got,
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So a point to you, Chris, and the
It's more of a catchphrase, really, with me,
Yes.
isn't it?
37 seconds, Chris. Cold Feet starting now.
My old grandmother always used to say, cold feet, warm heart, but she was a slightly dim woman. She would go,
Tim, you challenge, yes.
Well, apart from the rather tasteless, vicious attack on a sweet relative, you also...
You know nothing of her.
All right.
Anyway, you're not there to pass comment on other people's things. What is your challenge when the rules...
Hesitation. He stumbled. He stumbled.
Yes, a stumble becomes a hesitation. 30 seconds are available, Tim, for Cold Feet starting now.
Cold feet usually means that one is frightened of something, unable to get to grips with a situation, scared to move into a new region of life. This happens to us all, and we should not be ashamed. We should immediately dash down to... I said we should, so no one spotted it.
Alan, you challenged.
Well, I think it was a hesitation, and also
No, he said he repeated we should.
Oh, he repeated we should.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
So you very cleverly got in.
Can't help but feel assisted there. This is wonderful. It sounds harder than this on the radio.
16 seconds available for you, Alan, on cold feet, starting now.
If I were to ever to propose to a lady, I wouldn't buy her a wedding ring. I would simply buy her some thermal socks in order to avoid her standing me up at the altar and the excuse of cold feet. If you've got thermal socks, that's...
It's a tough game, Alan.
It is. Life's cruel.
And Chris has got in with 3 seconds to go on cold feet, starting now.
Tim Rice and I were going to have a torrid affair, and then I got cold feet.
So Chris Neal, speaking as a whistle-wind, got the extra point, and other points in the round. He's now taken the lead, actually, ahead of Tim Rice and Paul Merton in that order. Alan's coming up behind, and Alan, will you take the next round? The subject is the School of Hard Knocks. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I attended the School of Hard Knocks, followed by the University of Life, where I was expelled for bad behaviour, and I also attended the creche for people with...
Tim challenge, yes.
2 attended.
So, Tim, you've got him with 50 seconds on the School of Hard Knocks, starting now.
When I was younger, so much less old than I am today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now...
Alan, you've challenged.
Surely you did.
I was getting round to hard knocks. I was saying that when I was young, I was able to cope with everything, and now I'm clapped out and over the hill. Life's pretty tough. That's...
I have to say, that's the kind of statement that goes down quite well in Cheltenham, isn't it?
I think I must say it's a very difficult one to judge, and I give the benefit of the doubt to Alan, but I will try and redress it later on with you, Tim, if you don't mind. So there are 42 seconds for you, Alan, on the School of Hard Knocks, starting now.
Mirfield High School is now known as Free Grammar, but actually it's the School of Hard Knocks. When I was there, Osama bin Laden was a supply teacher who was sent home because of stress-related disorder. When the school meals were served, it was actually Gordon Ramsay, and he got angry. They weren't very good.
Chris.
You can't say can you? That's one of the rules.
Hesitation.
Oh, yes, that's a tough one, but it's right, Chris. So you've got the subject. 23 seconds, the School of Hard Knocks, starting now.
The School of Hard Knocks, or as it's also known, Cheltenham Ladies College, is a place where people have to strive to find their place in the world. I've said place twice.
And Paul challenged.
I said place 3 times.
Three times. So, Paul, you've got a correct challenge. Another point. 13 seconds. The School of Hard Knocks, starting now.
It's a phrase used by people who perhaps didn't have university education.
Tim, challenge.
I thought he stumbled there.
No, he didn't. He was going with fluently.
I thought you were going to give me the benefit of the doubt next time.
No. I will when I think you deserve it.
Oh, fine, OK. Yes, as long as we know where we are.
Fighting for that one there.
Could I have the benefit of the doubt, please?
I've given you one already.
OK.
Yes. Tim's waiting for his. You'll probably get it. But, Paul, you...
Could I have a cappuccino?
Yeah.
Instead of the benefit for the doubt.
No, you're going to have 10 seconds on the School of Hard Knocks, starting now.
So, when you go through life and the various knocks come towards you, you learn from your setbacks. That's what the phrase means. Instead of perhaps being at some glorious...
Tim, challenge.
Repetition of phrase. No, he used phrase in the previous chunk.
Ah, he did.
Yes.
When he was speaking before, he used the word phrase.
I don't think I said it once, did I?
All right.
Is there a train coming?
I think the audience are coming towards us. I don't know. I thought you said phrase before, but it doesn't really matter.
Shall we go down the pub, then? Shall we go down the pub?
Tim, we give you a benefit of a doubt on that one and
Good
a point.
decision. Good decision.
But Paul keeps the subject. He's got 1 second. The School of Hard Knocks, starting now.
Bang, they said.
So Paul was speaking as a whistle-wind, got that extra point, and with others in the round, he's taken the lead just 1 ahead of Chris Neal, who's 1 ahead of Tim Rice, who's 2 ahead of Alan Cochrane. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. The subject is I Spy. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Well, it was a popular television series in the 1960s starring Robert Culp and Bill Cosby.
Yes, right. Tim?
I'm afraid there was an error.
There was an error.
Grappled
Yes.
with the information.
Right, yes. So, Tim, you've got him with 52 seconds on I Spy, starting now.
Going back to an era which perhaps only our esteemed and brilliant chairman and I can remember, there was an establishment in the News Chronicle paper called I Spy, in which you sent off things you'd spotted to Big Chief I Spy, and he rewarded you, bizarrely, with a feather of a different colour.
Chris, challenge.
More a question, is this just rubbish?
No, it's
They all happened.
I Spy was a major... Oh, you ignorant fool.
Well, I'll ask you, Chris, have you ever heard of the News Chronicle?
Well, that...
No, you haven't, obviously.
Now, let's go back a bit. Have you heard of newspapers?
Now, if we start newspapers, I'm all right.
Okay.
Yes, now we start
News
there.
Chronicle was a very famous newspaper, and there was a column in it called
With a feather
I Spy.
in it?
No, that
You
was a
got
prize.
feather.
He
If you
established
spotted
it.
things, you got feathers.
You got feathers.
You would have loved it.
Do you look in my soul and see a man who likes feathers?
So it was an incorrect challenge, Tim, and you have 36 seconds starting now.
Of course, I Spy is a children's game, which is perhaps the very first pastime you get a grip on as a toddler or nipper. I spy with my little eye something beginning with A.
Audience. It was right.
That was lovely. That was lovely, Chris. But we're not playing I Spy. We're playing just a minute. But I tell you what, we give you a bonus point because we all enjoyed your interruption. But Tim was interrupted, so he has 24 more seconds if he wants them to continue on I Spy, starting now.
I Spy, what a terrific occupation that was. In the back of the car, I remember my father as we sped down the A1, or sometimes the A2.
Chris, challenge.
Repetition of A, as he
That's
said.
right, yes.
A1.
Well,
Yes.
hang on, A1, it's not A, it's A1.
No.
A2.
And it's written separately, A and then a 1.
A1 is written A1.
No.
No, I agree with
Step
you, Chris.
outside with me and look. Yes.
Don't bother to argue. I know what I'm going to say. Chris, you have a correct challenge.
Thank you, Nicholas. You are very wise.
15 seconds, I Spy, starting now.
If you were to ask an employee of GCHQ, which is fairly near here, they might say to the question, what do you do for a living? I spy.
Alan, you challenge then.
Well, they might not. They could work in the kitchen.
Shepherd's spy.
They might not, yes. But I tell you, Alan, what we do there, we enjoy the interruption. We give you a bonus point for that. But, of course, Chris did say they might say, I spy. I work in the GCHQ. Chris, another point to you. And, gosh, you've only got 1 second left. I Spy, starting now.
I spy.
Chris Neal was then speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point, and he has moved forward in that round. I Spy was his subject, wasn't it? And he's now 2 ahead of Paul Merton and Tim Rice. They're equal in second place, and then Alan Cochrane. Tim. Well, someone's got to be fourth. And it's a brilliant fourth, actually. It's the best fourth we had for a long time. And Alan Cochrane, take the next round, please. The subject is the average household. Tell us something about the average household, if you can, in this game, starting now.
The average household is a phrase used by people to describe what a typical family uses up in, say, a normal week.
Chris, you challenge.
Well, it's probably not, is it? It's just rubbish.
I did lose
you
the power
can't
of
have him for
speech.
deviation. I mean, he was talking perfectly. I mean, you can keep going in just a minute with any kind of rubbish you like. I
We
mean,
can't start having rubbish as a challenge, can we?
No.
You'd never get going.
You could have had him for hesitation, but it's too late now.
Hesitate.
He's gone. No. Alan, you have another point because you can use whatever rubbish you want. Keep going. Right.
Great.
52 seconds. The average household starting now.
The average household has 2 bedrooms, 1 kitchen, a bathroom, a living room, and various other areas of the house.
Challenge.
No front door.
I was coming up to that.
Oh, he's coming up to the front door. Okay, I'll withdraw my challenge. He's coming up to the front door.
Once you've interrupted, he stops his flow, and so he gets a point for an incorrect challenge. So
I was just
another
wondering
point
about the
to
front door, that's all.
I know you were, and we loved it. 44 seconds. Alan, the average household starting now.
An integral part of any average household is a front door. A garage, a budgie, 2.4...
Paul, challenge.
No windows. You were coming to that.
I was
He was
coming
coming
to
to that. I
windows,
withdraw
yeah.
my challenge.
You can't withdraw. We give you a bonus point, Paul, because we enjoyed the interruption. But, Alan, you get a point because you were interrupted, and you keep the subject. 37 seconds, the average household, starting now.
The best part of any average household.
Tim, challenge.
2 parts.
Yes, you had the part before. Yes, best part. You haven't won.
Here they come again.
You haven't won any friends with your challenge, Tim, but it was correct, and you have 35 seconds, the average household, starting now.
What is the average household? I hear you cry.
Alan, challenge.
I was just telling you before you interrupted me.
So, Alan, they enjoyed that interruption. You get a bonus point for that. But Tim was interrupted, so he gets a point, and he has 33 seconds for the average household, starting now.
I maintain, controversially perhaps, that there is no such thing as the average household. It is extremely difficult to nail down accurate figures or statistics proving that so-and-so is... all one word.
Chris,
is it all one word?
Of course.
So-and-so?
Yes, like A1.
Oh.
No, it isn't. It's so and so. So they're
so
separated
hyphen
by
and
an
hyphen so.
Hyphenated, isn't it?
No, it's
hyphenated.
It's separated by an and, so and so.
Yeah, but there's little hyphens that the so and the and. No, I'm supporting him.
Doesn't the hyphen usually take place of the and?
What?
Well, it wouldn't be so-so.
It wouldn't be so-so. That would be a Chinese takeaway, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No, and listen, I don't know why you're arguing against me, because I'm supporting you on this.
Because I'm a decent, fair kind of person, actually. Yes.
Well, I mean, I would say that...
But no, he was wrong.
Yeah. I agree. So the 19 seconds for you, Chris, on the average household, starting now.
The average household a few years ago would have 2.4 children, which is a particularly awkward number when you're buying bunk beds, I find. Parents would be there.
All challenge.
We did have a...
Yes, you had an there. He hesitated. Paul, you're back in with the average household. No, with the subject of the average household. And there are 9 seconds starting now.
The average household, if you look at it, generally consists of these things. Windows, of course. Front door, absolutely essential. But then you've got bedroom, bathroom...
So Paul has again maintained his lead with extra points and others in the round, and it's the same sequence, actually, again, Chris Neal, Tim Rice and Alan Cochrane in that order. But Alan's creeping up on the others, not far behind. Chris, your turn to begin. The subject now is fruitcake. Tell us something about... There's nothing funny in the subject. But I'm sure you'll make it funny, Chris, starting now.
How appropriate to be given the subject fruitcake. Let's think of the things that go into it. Raisins, sultanas, currants, other dried fruit, possibly figs, peaches, various nuts, walnuts, cob nuts, almonds, flaked and...
Tim, challenge.
Too many nuts.
Too many nuts.
No. Cob nuts and walnuts are one word.
No, but... No, they're not.
A1.
We don't spell walnuts as... Walnuts is one word, and cob nuts
is 2 words.
Cob nuts is not 2 words.
It is.
It isn't.
It is 2 words. You challenged on what basis?
On too many nuts.
No, there weren't
repeating of nuts.
Because he said walnut and cob nuts.
But before that, he said several kinds of nuts, such
right,
as
he did.
cob
All right,
nuts,
you're correct.
walnuts.
He did say several kinds of nuts. Yes, Tim, you've got him in 45 seconds. The whole thing's getting nuts.
Stone
But
the crows.
Fruitcake is with you, starting now.
Fruitcake. This brings back such happy memories of a childhood gilded with privilege and cake.
All challenge.
Repetition of...
Yes, I should explain to our listeners, for those who couldn't see, he was actually slobbering over the microphone, and I agree with your challenge.
It was all one slobber. There were no hyphens in my slobber.
But a correct challenge, Paul, and you have 37 seconds on fruitcake starting now.
In less enlightened days, it was a term used for those who were mentally ill. Look at that fruitcake over there, people used to say. But now we live in a better time where we can see that actually mental health issues are as important to us as they are to everybody else. We don't get ashamed if we break our legs, so why should we particularly be bothered if we have a huge manic episode that involves killing a lot of people? Not reason at all. The best thing to look forward to in this day and age, I think, without any doubt, and
Tim, challenge.
I think 2 ages. He said an earlier age and then this day and age.
Early age? I don't know.
No, nor do I know.
Is anybody taping?
I was so carried away with what you were saying. No, in this day and age, and yes, you did repeat age. I just remembered now. It's gone. But it all seeps into my subconscious, and I have to do a quick replay, you see, like that. Comes buzzing.
Think of the word silt.
I used to like you, you know. Tim, correct challenge. 11 seconds. Fruitcake starting now.
It is extremely difficult to encapsulate in a mere 11 seconds the magic, the wonder, the mystery of...
Chris, challenge.
To encapsulate the seconds.
I didn't understand it either,
No.
Tim, so I think I'll give Chris the benefit of the doubt.
The audience understood every word. They were hanging on them.
Did you understand it?
Listen to that word no just come resound.
Must be a funny language to speak in Cheltenham, then. Right. Your audience, you give me a difficult one. I'll give them both a point, and Tim, you keep the subject. And there are 10 seconds starting now.
It's even harder in 10 seconds to get over the insane...
Chris, challenge.
Repetition of seconds.
Yes. So Chris, you've got in with 7 seconds to go on fruitcake starting now.
Other things you might like to include, a brandy...
Tim, challenge.
Repetition of include. I'm playing to win here.
Yes. So, Tim, you listen well. 5 seconds, fruitcake starting now.
But
Chris, challenge.
Repetition of seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just like to finish a subject once.
Yeah. If you get too keen, the whole thing doesn't finish at all. So...
Do what I do. Go home and play it on your own. I'm not the only one that does that, am I? I've got little cardboard figures.
Do you win?
Oh, every time.
All right, 3 seconds on fruitcake, Paul, starting now.
When I look down at my mother's face as she comes...
Right. So Paul Merton was speaking as a whistle. When it's increased his lead, and we're moving into the final round, I have to tell you. Paul Merton has got a definite lead over Tim Rice and Chris Neal, who are equal in second place.
Where am I?
You're following the...
You're in the top 4.
You're in the top 4, yes. Yes, the top 4, which is pretty good in this game.
Yeah.
And, Paul, it's your turn to begin, so would you start with jumping on the bandwagon? 60 seconds starting now.
It's always great fun spotting a bandwagon and jumping on it. If you look at the Arctic Monkeys, they had a particularly spectacular year, 2006, and lots of people who hadn't heard of them suddenly got into their music and were jumping up and down and saying, you look too good and all this sort of stuff. It was fantastic, marvellous, brilliant material. And I also...
Tim, challenge.
Brilliant?
Brilliant.
Brilliant. I think, although I didn't get it clearly, it sounded like brilliant to me. It came out. I think that's what he was trying to say. So, Paul, you have another point.
What he was trying to say. We're all trying in this game.
I can't help it.
He failed. He tried, and well done,
I'm
Paul.
lower down on the evolutionary scale, that's all.
44 seconds, Paul. Jumping on the bandwagon, starting now.
At the fun fair, my favourite ride when I used to go was the bandwagon. And if you're familiar with it, it's like a wagon that's got a band on it. There was also a radio show in 1939 called Bandwagon that starred Arthur Askey and Richard Murdoch. And I was very pleased to be appearing on Just a Minute for the very first time. And I was sitting next to...
Chris, challenge.
Repetition of very.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very first time, yes. Right. So, Chris, you got in with 29 seconds on jumping on the bandwagon, starting now.
It seems in this game that when you talk about nuts, you're jumping on the bandwagon. Walnuts, cob nuts.
Challenge.
Repetition of nuts.
Well, I think we'd established that walnuts is one word and cob nuts is two, so...
Two different lots of nuts. He said nuts before it.
I know, but not in this round.
No.
Just then. He said nuts 3 times in a row.
You're all right.
Did he? Right. OK, Alan.
The thing is, I'm allergic to nuts.
Well, you now have jumping on the bandwagon, and you have 24 seconds starting now.
I love jumping on the bandwagon when it comes to nuts. I really like nuts.
That's the curse of this show, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I was hypnotised by the concept of nuts.
We've all been there.
Yes. 17 seconds for you, Chris, on jumping on the bandwagon, starting now.
Jumping on the bandwagon, what a marvellous thing to do. As Paul says, it speeds along and you get your pace up and there you are, you leap and you're on the back of that very bandwagon.
Alan, challenge.
Deviation, they actually go really slowly, bandwagons.
Not this particular one.
They can pick up speed, bandwagons.
Yeah. I was going downhill, I just didn't mention it.
I didn't realise it was on a steep gradient.
But he was deviating from English as we understand it. So, Alan, why don't you finish your 8 seconds jumping on the bandwagon starting now?
What I could tell you about jumping on the bandwagon would take exactly 9 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, so I'll begin it this
Alan Cochrane finished that round and gained an extra point for doing so, and he's finished up in a magnificent 4th place. But it was. In other words, it was 4th place, but it was magnificent. And just ahead of him in 3rd place was Tim in a very, very credible and excellent 3rd place. And 2 points ahead of him was Chris in a magnificent 2nd place. But out in the lead, 7 points ahead of Chris Neal, was Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, this week you are our winner. Thank you. It only remains to me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Tim Rice, Alan Cochrane and Chris Neal. I also thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such style. We are grateful to our producer, Talusha Galani, and of course we're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game, and we're very grateful to this lovely audience here at the Everyman Theatre in Cheltenham, who've cheered us on our way. So from our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and from the panel, tune in the next time we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented and delightful players of this game. And they are seated on my right, that regular player who's contributed so much, that outstanding comedian Paul Merton, and sitting beside him, someone who's played the game many times and always contributes extremely well, that is Clement Freud. And seated on my left, we have the presenter and comedian Fred Macaulay, and beside him, someone who's never played the game before, a very talented comedian and writer, and that is Joe Caulfield. And will you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from one of the venues at the Pleasance on the Edinburgh Fringe. And we have a huge, excited, hyped up festival fringe audience here, dying for us to start the show. We'll begin with Paul Merton, and Paul, very apt for starting, The Scotsman. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
The Scotsman is the newspaper that all new performers in the Fringe buy religiously every day. They search for those reviews, perhaps a 5-star review, or maybe a 4, but something they can put on a poster. I remember once being at the Student Union here back a long time ago now in the early 1980s and seeing all these beautiful students lying down...
Fred, you've challenged.
I think I may have challenged incorrectly, but did he say students twice?
No, I said student and students.
He said student the first time and students the second time.
Well, he repeated the word student up to the S.
I know, but he's played the game a lot. He knows how to wriggle out of those things. He did repeat something else, but it's too late now.
Did he repeat it's too late now?
No.
It's not much
it was
of
an
a help.
incorrect challenge. I'm sorry, Fred. Lovely to hear from you. Lovely.
Good to be here.
You must come back again sometime.
It's the contributions that matter. Paul, it was an incorrect challenge, so you get a point for that. You keep the subject, and 41 seconds available starting now.
If you walk down Oxford Street on any regular Sunday morning, you will see a Scotsman parked outside where...
Clement challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
Regular Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
How can Sunday morning be anything but?
So you're saying deviation from English as we understand it should be regularly on Sunday morning? No, you're not saying that.
Nicholas, I hate to interrupt you, but can I just say that 3 Sundays ago I got up and one of our dogs had brought in a rabbit and was rubbing spam onto its head. That was no regular Sunday.
Clement, we give you the benefit of the doubt. We give you the subject. It is The Scotsman. You have a point, of course. 35 seconds starting now.
In a small plane flying over the Ural Mountains, there were 5 passengers. A Scotsman, another Scotsman, a Scottish person, someone from Inverness, and a kindly gentleman from Ayr. And the captain said, someone will have to get out because the weight is too great. And of course, a Scotsman was the first one to volunteer. He said, me, I will go. Watch while I open the door and jump overboard, especially as we are...
Fred, you've challenged.
It's deviation. You can't jump overboard from an aircraft that's flying.
I would agree with you, Fred. A very good challenge. Deviation, so right.
What's happened to these 5 Scotsmen, isn't it? One of them's going to jump overboard, and we don't know what's going to happen to the rest of them.
What happened to the rest of them, Clement?
I'm not saying.
You'll have to write to him. Maybe we'll find out after. So Fred has got a correct challenge. He has a point for that, and he has the Scotsman starting now.
There is a fine hotel...
In this game, whoever is speaking as the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Fred Macaulay, who has got 2 points now, so he's in the lead at the end of that round. Clement, Freud, will you take the next round? Oh, goose pimples. 60 seconds, starting now.
Geese only get pimples when you pull out their feathers on the way to killing them and producing foie gras, goose liver, the most delicious and wholly immoral substance you could ever eat. Goose pimples are also on human beings, usually occasioned by extremes of weather, particularly cold. And your body...
Paul challenged.
It was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation. Paul, you have the subject of goose pimples. You have 34 seconds, and your time starts now.
Getting goose pimples is a sign of expectation as I walk towards this magnificent venue today with 700 people to record just a minute. Goose pimples were all over my body. Looked at my hand, down the back of my arm, my leg, every single atom of my skin.
Clement challenged.
5 miles.
Yeah.
1 for each Scotsman. Though we've still left up in that plane.
Yeah, we sometimes let 2 or 3 go, but 5 miles is, I think we must give it to Clement for that one. Another point to you, Clement. The subject, goose pimples, and there are 21 seconds on goose pimples starting now.
Fear and apprehension are the usual qualities that cause a person to get goose pimples, which are skin...
Fred challenged.
No.
I'm challenging on behalf of Joe because I think there was a hesitation there. Now, if there was a hesitation, I'm prepared to pass it over to Joe.
Do you know how very weird that was? Because just after
But
you
you
did
hesitated.
that, I did that. Oh, you saw me hesitate with
yeah.
the thing. I wasn't quite sure.
Anyway, Fred's been...
I think there was a hesitation.
Yeah, well, Fred has very generously given his hesitation, his correct challenge, over to you. So we're going to hear from you on goose pimples with 13 seconds to go, starting now.
It doesn't really matter if you call them.
No, not you, Fred.
That was a fantastic impression, wasn't it? That was a fantastic impression.
Am I allowed to say theft? Is that allowed?
Yeah. No, Fred, you gave it to Joe.
I forgot about that.
Well, look, I'll tell you what we're going to do there. We're going to give Fred Macaulay a bonus point for his generosity as well as the humour he generated.
Well, he was generous, but then he forgot very quickly that he was generous.
And there are 13 seconds now on goose pimples with you, Joe, starting now.
So when I open my mouth this time, Fred's voice won't come out. Good, that was successful. That's okay.
Paul challenge.
No,
deviate.
What's that?
It's Clement challenge.
Clement, what's the challenge?
I'd forgotten.
Right. So we give Clement a bonus point because we enjoyed his interruption, and you get a bonus point.
Right.
No, you get a legitimate point because you were interrupted, and you keep the subject, and there are 8 seconds left on Goose Pimples, Joe, starting now.
Goose pimples. Goose pimples. Who was that?
Well, strictly speaking, it was hesitation.
I know it was.
Was it? Was that actually hesitation?
No, you went on Goose Pimples, and then you hesitated. So, Paul, you have a correct challenge. You have the subject of I'm getting goose pimples now.
Deviation.
Yes, I know. But no points awarded on that one. Paul, 7 seconds, goose pimples, starting now.
If you take a goose out of its normal environment and put it somewhere extremely cold, soon you will observe that magnificent phenomenon known to scientists...
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. He's now in the lead, 1 ahead of Clement Freud and Fred Macaulay, and 2 ahead of Joe Caulfield. And Joe, it's your turn to begin. So, would you now start with the subject of...
OK, I've got to be ready for the now.
Right. The subject is paradise, 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
For a long time, we have been told that the taste of paradise is in fact sweetened coconut and chocolate, which means that paradise actually has a very, very unhealthy diet. Very, very.
That's the trick. If you haven't played the game, everybody falls into. The number of
Shall I leave now? Is that best? Yeah.
No, darling, we love having you, and you're contributing hugely.
I am making everyone look marvellous. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. They're going, it is a hard game, isn't it? We thought it was easy, but that woman's
it is a hard
idiot.
game. It is a hard game. But when it comes to looking lovely, I mean, you're lost on radio, actually, because you do look gorgeous. But, Fred, we can't let that one go. Correct challenge. Right, you've got the subject, and you've got 51 seconds, paradise, starting now.
5 Scotsmen in an aeroplane flying over the Urals. One of them is going to end up in paradise, which, for the Glaswegian listeners to Radio 4, they know that it's Celtic Park, where the green and white hooked football team play. I don't know why it's called that, because just across the town, Rangers play at Ibrox, and
Paul, you challenged.
Hesitation.
There was a definite hesitation. Right. So, Paul, you have Ibrox. No, you don't. You have Paradise. And,
Don't ever make that mistake in Glasgow.
Give Fred another bonus point. We enjoyed that one. But, Paul, you have a point. You correct challenge, and there are 32 seconds. Paradise starting now.
Paradise is a place that exists mainly in people's minds. Utopia, perhaps, somewhere gorgeous where we can relax after a long day's work. Our partner comes towards us, offering us a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Could there be anything better than that, apart from...
Clement challenge.
Frankly, yes.
I've got to raise my standards, haven't I?
Yes.
That's not paradise at all.
No, I think you empathise a lot of people on that particular remark. But, Clement, yes, I agree with you, what you said. But what is your challenge with the rules of just a minute? None at all?
None.
None, right. But we will give you a bonus point because we did enjoy the interruption. But Paul gets the point because he was interrupted. He still has Paradise, and he's got 18 seconds to tell us more about Kentucky Fried Chicken, starting now.
For some people, paradise may be living in the middle of a dark, dank cave, nibbling old hobnob biscuits while looking at repeats of the White Feather Club, or White Heather, wasn't it? Damn.
Clement, you challenge first.
Repetition of white.
Yes, correct, Clement. You have another point. You have the subject, and you have 7 seconds on Paradise, starting now.
You can always tell when you're in paradise by the quality of the sweet trolley. It is so very much more attractive than you would find it.
Right, so Clement Freud was speaking of the whistle. Wend gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's equal with Paul in the lead. And 1 point behind them is Fred McCauley and then Joe Caulfield. And Fred, we'd like you to begin the next round. And the subject is very apt for where we are up here in the Pleasance. But the subject is Beyond the Fringe. Tell us something about that subject which we all use up here, starting now.
Most of my life since the age of 19 has been spent beyond the fringe because that's when I started to lose my hair. But it was the name of a most successful show that was brought to Edinburgh Festival, I think in the early 60s, which starred Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Jonathan Miller, Alan Bennett, and it was hugely successful. Went on to...
Paul challenge.
I think we had successful
You
before.
had 2 successful, yes.
Nothing can be too successful.
And that was... And that... But Sir Paul, you got in with a point, of course, 42 seconds, Beyond the Fringe, starting now.
As Fred mentioned, that was indeed a very popular show, and a lot of people don't realise now that it was part of the Edinburgh Official Festival, not part.
Clement challenge.
Part.
Yes, we interpret that as hesitation, so you take Beyond the Fringe, Clement, and you have 35 seconds, starting now.
I think I totally agree with Fred.
Paul, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, he agreed, and that was enough. So you're back in again, Paul, on Beyond the Fringe, and there are 32 seconds starting now.
If you climb up Arthur's Seat and look to the distant horizon, there is no doubt about it, you are seeing beyond the fringe. All those clowns, tumblers, stand-up comedians, people in improvisational groups, review artists, all gather round this mighty city once every August, hoping that somebody from television is going to walk into their venue and say, "You're useless, you'll never work again." It happened to me once in 1987.
Clement challenge.
It happened to him twice in 1980.
They're all looking at you rather mystified, Clement. Can you explain for the sake of the listeners and audience?
He got kicked out of 2 shows.
Yeah. It's true, I did, yeah.
So he repeated what?
He repeated getting the sack.
Yeah.
He was certainly repetitious. All right, Clement. You love winding me up, and you've achieved it. 8 seconds. Beyond the Fringe, Clement, starting now.
Beyond the Fringe is really about winding up Nicholas Parsons. It is a simple thing to do. You stand up and you say, "Hey, Chairman, guess what?"
So Clement Freud was then speaking again as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now 1 ahead of Paul Merton, and they're both slightly ahead of Fred Macaulay and Joe Caulfield in order. Paul, we're back with you to begin, and the subject now is the best thing since sliced bread. Take that phrase, do something with it in this game, starting now.
Toast.
Joe, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Well done, Joe. You're absolutely on the ball.
I have realised this game is really like doing maths, and I wasn't ever good at maths, and my brain is not computing anything. I realise also I don't listen to people at all, because you're all going, "Oh, they've repeated it." I was going, "Were they? I was looking at that lady's top. It's really nice." You know? So now I get to speak, don't I?
You get to speak, darling, when I say now.
Okay.
And the subject is the best thing since sliced bread, and there are 59 seconds starting now.
When anyone ever says to me, "Oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread," I always immediately lower my expectation of what they're about to show me. If they are truly impressed by sliced bread, I don't think I'm going to be that pleased by whatever it is they're going to bring me. Actually, I now find myself genuinely impressed in a supermarket when the man will slice the bread for you. How strange is that we go back in time, I bring him a loaf, he puts it in a machine, and you know, I am genuinely impressed when he slices that bread in front of me.
Fred, you've challenged.
Repetition of impressed.
Yes, you were impressed before, I'm afraid.
I was so impressed, though.
I know. Yeah. But you went very well. You went for 30 seconds.
Well done.
Not bad. Fred, a correct challenge. You have the subject. You have the best thing since sliced bread. 30 seconds starting now.
The only time someone has told me that they thought that I had come up with an idea that was the best thing since sliced bread was when I approached a television producer with an idea for the White Feather Club, which was going to be Scottish country dancing for cowards. Jimmy Shand was going to be playing with his accordion, there was a drummer in the background, somebody on double bass at the front, but the noise was too much for the dancers to progress and come forward, and furthermore, there was...
Paul, you challenge.
Ironically, a hesitation after furthermore.
After furthermore.
Can I just say that also, in geographical terms, that furthermore is just north of Strathmore, where White Feather Club dancing began.
Anyway, it was a hesitation, so Paul, a correct challenge. The best thing since sliced bread is back with you, and there are 5 seconds left, starting now.
If you peruse the posters that you see up here at the festival, many of them will declare that the persons in the show are...
So Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now 1 ahead of Clement Freud, and he's 4 ahead of Fred Macaulay, and a few more ahead of Joe Caulfield. And
what a lovely way of putting it.
Yes. Well, you know, there's no losers in this game. You either finish up in third, fourth, or well. And Clement, it's your turn to begin, and the subject we've got for you to start with is odds and ends. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
Let me begin with odds. They are the numeral calculations of your stake if you go gambling, like even money if the amount of money that you...
Fred, challenge.
Yeah.
Two monies,
there was
uneven.
There was too much money, yes, too much money. So, Fred, you got in with on odds and ends, and you have 49 seconds starting now.
In the retail environment, particularly in garments for men and women, you'll often find a bin in a shop that contains odds and ends. These can be trousers, socks, underpants, shirts, jerseys, jerkins, which are really just anoraks without a hood, balaclavas and other hatwear. Basically, anything that they've been trying to sell in the shop that is no longer in the main part of the retail environment.
Paul, challenge.
Shame, but it was the repetition of retail.
I know. Oh, yes, that's right. It was you have to repeat a retail as well as the pause. Yeah. Right, Paul, so you've got him with 25 seconds to go. Odds and ends as a subject, and you start now.
I think a lot of us at home have a drawer that we dedicate to our odds and ends. There may be various bits and pieces from our life that we've secreted inside that wooden box. Something that we pick up from 1978 and go, ah, yes, that's when I was in a punk band. Clement himself showed me a photograph earlier. It was a magnificent tribute group, wasn't it, that you were in? Yeah, magnificent. And they were fantastic. They would play all kinds of rock and roll.
Joe, you've challenged. Joe, what was your challenge?
Magnificent.
Yes,
repetition.
well, listen.
I almost didn't hear you tell me that, Nicholas.
There were people at the back did.
Well, Joe, you haven't played it before, so you're entitled to that little bit of generosity. And you've got in with 2 seconds to go. And the subject is odds and ends.
Don't think I won't get challenged.
Take your breath, and you start now.
Odds and ends.
There we are. Paul, you challenged?
A hesitation.
Rubbish. Another point to you, Joe. And you have odds and ends. 1.5 seconds to go, starting now.
Odds and ends. Oh.
Yes. Fred.
Another desperate hesitation. It was appalling. And all the times I've played this, I've rarely heard a longer hesitation. The first time excuse isn't going to wear with me. That was... note to producer, could you edit in a pause?
Fred, we give you a bonus point because we love the interruption, but Jo was interrupted, and she still has a second to go on odds and ends, starting now.
Odds and ends are always together.
So Jo Caulfield was speaking then when the whistle went and gained that extra point for doing so, and with others in the round, she has really leapt forward. She's still in 4th place, but she's leapt forward. She's only 1 behind Fred, she's only 2 behind Clement, and 3 behind Paul as we take the next one. In fact, Jo, it's back with you to begin. And we'd like you to start with retail therapy. 60 seconds, starting now.
Retail therapy is the idea that spending money will make you feel better. This is something I've tried to explain to my husband, but it's hard for him to understand because he's from Aberdeen, and he's never quite got that concept that will make you feel happier. Sometimes retail therapy actually is very annoying because the service is so bad that I then find that I'm not happy at all after my retail therapy. I once went to a shop.
Clement, challenge.
I'm very over happiness.
Yes, you did repeat happy twice.
I'm a very happy person.
But you can't repeat it twice in just a minute, unfortunately. So, Clement, well, listen, you've got the subject, you have retail therapy. There are 40 seconds available, starting now.
In Douglas, in the Isle of Man, there is a nursing home which practices retail therapy. Cats, who obviously have no tails, being Manx, come there in order to be like other feline animals, and all sorts of tales are...
Jo, you challenged?
I've not played the game before, but I was slightly worried that Clement was having a stroke or something. It's very odd.
Because he was
the
going...
cats
yes,
and, yeah.
Yes. But so you think it was deviation from...
I was just worried in case he was... but if he's okay, then... Yeah.
Well, I don't know whether they do retail cats in the Isle of Man or not. Is that what you were challenging on, deviation?
Yes.
Well, I think it would be true, wouldn't it? It would be deviation. I can't believe... Oh, well, ask the audience. Do you think they have retail therapy in the Isle of Man?
Yes, they do.
My God, some of them do.
People have been there.
So, to be perfectly fair, we give you a bonus point for the interruption. But, Clement, you were interrupted, so you keep the subject, retail therapy, and there are 22 seconds starting now.
The word retail therapy also applies to people who enjoy spending their money.
Fred, challenge.
Hesitation.
It was a hesitation, yes. Fred, you have the subject, and you have retail therapy, and you have 18 seconds starting now.
If you go into the shops that sell trousers, anoraks, balaclavas, etc., in the odds and ends bin, you may find on the real racks this year's latest fashions, which could be colours of...
Do
Paul,
you
challenge.
have a repetition of racks there?
Yes, you had the racks before. So, Paul, you've got in with... You've only got 2 seconds available. Got retail therapy. You start now.
I love to wander down Oxford Street and buy everything.
So, Paul was getting the whistle, the point when the whistle went. He got the whistle when the point went. But it gets to you sometime, this show. I'll give you the score as we move into the final round. Right, Jo Caulfield, who hasn't played the game before, has done marvellously. She's in 4th place, but she's done extraordinarily well. But she's only 2 points behind Fred Macaulay, and she's still 3 points behind Clement Freud, and another 3 or 4 in the lead is Paul Merton. As we begin the last round, Fred, it's actually your turn to begin, and the subject, which could be embarrassing for me, is the parson's nose. So will you tell us something about the parson's nose in just a minute, starting now?
Once you've plucked the feathers from a goose and it's entirely naked, you'll find at the rear end, where the tail feathers protrude, the parson's nose. Why it's called this is a mystery to me and a terrible slight on the ecclesiastical personnel. You don't have the bishop's tonsils, for example. Well, you might do, and I shudder to think where they might be. Nicholas, very fortunately, has a parson's nose, otherwise his spectacles would be down at his chin. Luckily, he has parson's ears as well.
Paul, challenge.
Thank you.
There was a hesitation.
There was a hesitation. When he got to the ears, he couldn't think of any more parts of my anatomy.
Well, sadly, Nicholas, I could, but...
That's what halted him in his tracks.
I hesitated.
That's what I was thinking to say. Anyway, it's the parson's nose. Paul, it's with you. We have another point. You have 30 seconds starting now.
If you pluck the feathers out of Nicholas Parsons, you end up with a goose's nose. It's the most extraordinary delicacy. You can have it carved up, sliced, and you go into any restaurant in Glasgow and they will happily serve it up to you. The parson's nose is that part of the bird, be it chicken, turkey or goose, that is identified...
Clement, challenge.
I think we've had goose.
Not in this round. No, it was... yes, we did. But it was Fred who clapped the goose.
I had goose.
He talked about the goose.
I might have said goose a bit right at the beginning. Did I say something?
You did say goose at the beginning. You're quite
yeah.
right. Well owned up. And so, Clement, a correct challenge. You have 15 seconds on the parson's nose, starting now.
I was very interested when I visited Haiti at seeing how many parson's noses were imported from the United States. It is the favourite part of a chicken in Port-au-Prince. Go to any restaurant you like and say, I will have today's...
So, Clement Freud, with his experiences in Haiti, telling us what the parson's knows, finished the round, gained that extra point. I'll give you the final situation. Jo, who has not played the game before, but has contributed magnificently. Been lovely having you.
I love the way you make me sound so special.
You finished in a very brilliant 4th place. Fred Macaulay, who hasn't played the game very much either, has finished in an excellent 3rd place. Well,
thank you.
Clement Freud, who has played the game quite a lot, finished in a superb 2nd place. And he was only 1 point behind Paul Merton, who we say, Paul, you are the winner this week. So it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Clement Freud, Jo Caulfield and Fred Macaulay. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle so delightfully. We thank our producer, Talusha Gilani. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're really indebted to this lovely audience here at the Pleasance on the Fringe in Edinburgh in 2007, who've cheered us on our way. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the panel, goodbye, and tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Yeah!
And there are more Just a Minute shenanigans with Nicholas Parsons at the same time next week, when the show will again be coming from the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, with guests Paul Merton, Clement Freud, Janie Godley and Marcus Brigstock.